Chapter 2575. Shu raised his head. When we become extremely strong, even Lu Yin can become a demi-human. Xiao Qingfeng smiled. That day will come. If he offends the reincarnation spacetime, the primordial space will be conquered sooner or later. Let's use the people around Lu Yin as an appetizer and let him see the people closest to him get auctioned off and become demi-humans. I'm really looking forward to it. We were the first to integrate the power of 6 civilizations in the 6 Direction Society, so we'll definitely be at the top in the future. Why don't we set an agreement to conquer the primordial space? Alright, I'm in. Me too. What about you, Xianxia? Someone asked. Xiao Qingfeng and the others looked over. Lu Yin met everyone's gazes and smiled. Sure. Shu raised his brows. He was the only one present who knew that Lu Yin had come from the primordial space. But when he saw Lu Yin's smile, he suddenly didn't understand. The primordial space was his spacetime after all. No one knew what Lu Yin was smiling about, but he was genuinely happy. This way he wouldn't have to worry about not having the motivation to take revenge for the Lu family. Over the next 2 days, everyone gathered here and waited for a woman named Yuan Qianan to arrive. She was the disciple of the Yuan sage. I heard that everyone is here to discuss conquering the primordial space. I congratulate everyone in advance on your success, she said happily. Everyone hurriedly replied modestly, Sister Qian, we're just looking forward to the future. Yuan Qianan continued, my master has already heard of everyone's ambitions and is very satisfied. He specially sent me to deliver some information about the primordial space to everyone. He hopes that it will be of help to everyone in this trial. Everyone was delighted. Thank you, Senior Yuan Sage. We won't have to waste any more time investigating. Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior. Yuan Qianan left, but before she left, she expressed her satisfaction with everyone's attitude. This made everyone even more convinced that the Yuan Sage, or rather, the reincarnation spacetime, hated the primordial space. Their words became more disdainful of the primordial space, and they also became more hostile towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin received the information and calmly looked at it. The information was very detailed. Everyone's location, cultivation base, and battle techniques were all marked on the list. This was equivalent to adding a navigation system for this trial. This wasn't a trial at all. It was just an operation to capture him, an operation to target him. Shu walked over to Lu Yin's side and whispered, don't touch the top 3. Let's not talk about whether or not you have the ability to capture them. If you run into the others, they won't be polite. Be careful. Lu Yin did not reply as he watched Shu leave. This was probably a warning from He Ran. She cared about him because of Zijing. As he watched the crowd excitedly discuss who to capture, Lu Yin left. The day to go to the origin space had arrived. All of them gathered in the starry sky. The person who led them to the origin space was an unfamiliar half-martial ancestor from the reincarnation spacetime. It was said that he was a subordinate of a Yuan sage. As soon as this person arrived, he raised his hand and numerous palm-sized glass-like lotus flowers flew into the hands of the crowd. This was a power vessel created by a grade 9 venerated lotus that could bring him directly to the Hexway training rites. This lotus treasure can save your lives. Don't use it unless you have no other choice. At the same time, it will be a reward before the trial begins. Once the trial ends, the lotus treasure will not be taken back, said the half-ancestor. Everyone was overjoyed. This was equivalent to an extra life. Lu Yin put away the lotus treasure and glanced at the others. He wanted all the good stuff. As the void tore apart, the crowd was led by the unfamiliar half-ancestor. With a single step they arrived at the 5th mainland. Lu Yin looked over. Was this the edge of the Milky Way? He saw a beach in the distance. It was so familiar. The Hexway Society could come and go as they pleased, which made Lu Yin feel particularly insecure. He did not know how many spatial coordinates they had placed on the 5th mainland. Only the Eternals had spatial coordinates, and the Hexway Society had also snatched them from them. These spatial coordinates could be used to set a location and allow people from other spacetimes to come to the designated spacetime. Another function was to seal it off. It was not impossible for parallel spacetimes to intersect. For example, the 5th mainland and the 3 monarch spacetimes had intersected at the bottom of the Tower of Resonating Light. Back then, Guyu had obtained the spatial coordinates from somewhere and sealed off the passage. This was also one of the uses of spatial coordinates. Lu Yin really wanted to obtain a large number of spatial coordinates that would allow him to freely travel through parallel spacetimes. He suddenly thought of Xianxia. How had that guy come to Earth so many times? It was said that his father had the ability to do so. There was also that lightning rabbit that Xianxia had been chasing after. The more Lu Yin understood about parallel spacetimes, the more interested he became in Xianxia. It would be great if he could find him. With his spatial innate gift, he might be able to run through parallel spacetimes like that tree one day. Everyone, we all know about Senior Yuan Sage. Do what you can. Xiao Qingfeng looked around at the crowd, especially at Lu Yin before leaving. Luo Zong, He Shu and the others also left. With the information they had, they knew roughly where their target was. What they needed to do now was determine their location. Lu Yin believed that their target was the Cosmic Sea. Of the top 3 on the list, 2 were in the Cosmic Sea. They were Heizij Lian and Lei Qingqing. One by one they left. Shihong also left with Suyu. Surizen did not come. Jiang Xiaodao came, but he was uncharacteristically quiet, as if he was thinking about something. Lu Yin left and no one paid attention to him. Although he was extremely talented, his cultivation and methods still mattered when it came to capturing people. He was not someone that the others cared about or feared. After leaving the trial participants, Lu Yin quickly crossed the Astral River and returned to the Above Heavens sect. When he arrived, the first person he met was Wang Wen. Capturing people? Wang Wen was shocked. Lu Yin passed the list to Wang Wen. I guessed that the 6 sides would make a move, but I didn't expect it to be so soon. Wang Wen continued, and it's so childish. Childish? Lu Yin thought about it and agreed. Yeah, it's a battle between parallel spacetimes and they actually sent a group of people to capture hostages. It's childish, but if they succeed, it'll be very effective. Wang Wen's expression was solemn as he put down the list and looked at Lu Yin seriously. Why isn't my name on it? Lu Yin met his gaze. Do you really want to be captured? Of course not, but my name isn't on the list. They're looking down on me. I helped you unify the Outerverse and thought of many things for you, but in the end you don't even have a name. Wang Wen was very unhappy. Lu Yin pursed his lips. Then let's teach them a lesson. They'll treat you like the astral beast domain and put you at the top of their list of threats. Wang Wen sneered. I'll show them how powerful I am. Look down on me. Humph. After venting his frustrations, Wang Wen picked up the list again. Pick a few and give them to them. Lu Yin sighed. That's what I thought. Wang Wen's tone was unpleasant. They've already made their move, so we can only accept it. We need to have something that the 6 Directions Society can use against us and make them think that we're unruly but controllable. That's the only way they won't directly destroy us. Otherwise, according to what you said, they'll be holding back, and that's more than enough to deal with us. I don't want to die. We've already provoked them and made no effort to hide our hatred, but we still need to control our actions. Lu Yin continued. That's why I rushed to enter the 6 Directions Society as Xianxia. I wanted to make the first move, but unfortunately time didn't allow for it. Wang Wen waved the list. Right now they're taking hostages to force us to support the 3 monarchs. Since Mu Jun is with us, we'll just help. The 4 Directions scale won't be able to do anything to us, and with Senior Mu Xia and Elder Chan around, there's no need to worry about the Eternals. Even if it really comes down to it, we'll just release Mu Jun. Of course, that's the final step. Lu Yin didn't want to take that step. If he did, not only would he have a falling out with the 3 monarchs, but he would also offend hyperspace and become enemies with the entire 6 Directions Society. The 6 Directions Society looked down on them and hated them because of their past grievances, but they weren't completely hostile. These were 2 completely different concepts. You can pick the hostages yourself and see who's willing to be captured. The 6 Directions Society needs us, so the hostages won't be harmed, Wang Wen said. Louis knew this. They're like hostages. Just like Luo Lauer, Wang Wen said before leaving. Lu Yin looked at the list for a while and crossed out a few names. Even if he wanted to give the hostages to the 6 Directions Society, he would have to ask for their permission first. Now he wanted to see what the trial takers would do. They would use all sorts of methods to obtain information from the 5th mainland, and from this one could see the 6 Directions Society's methods. In the eyes of Xiao Qingfeng and the others, they were in the dark while the people on the list were out in the open. They had all sorts of power, so capturing hostages wasn't a problem. The only problem was that they had to compete with each other, so it was a competition of speed. The person closest to the astral river flats was naturally Mira. She was known as the Red Lotus Witchbow and could be considered Lu Yin's guide into outer space. Without her, even if Lu Yin disguised himself as King Zishan's descendant, he might not have been able to be discovered so easily. He owed her a debt of gratitude, and she was also the one who had sent him to the Astral Combat Academy and ensured that he could join the Outerverse Youth Council. Although Lu Yin had risen to prominence and had not contacted her much, she was still very important and was naturally one of the hostages on the list. There were 3 people keeping an eye on Mira. Lu Yin had seen 2 of them before, but he had never spoken to them before. They were considered ordinary people in the 6 Directions training rites. Decades had passed, but Mira was still the same as before. Her long white hair was draped down to her ankles, and there was a cute tuft of hair on her forehead. She wore cool summer clothes and her skin was sparkling and translucent. The only thing that had changed was that she had matured a lot. One's temperament could change a person. Mira had once pretended to be mature, but now her every movement was filled with mature charm. She came from a planet called Minghuai in the erudite flow zone and had once followed Xianxia. Now she had joined the Above the Sky sect and was one of the countless cultivators who patrolled the 5th mainland. "Return," Mira ordered as she lowered her head and looked at her gadget. "Understood." Not long after, the spacecraft turned around. Mira stood up and stretched. "How tiring." Chapter 2576. At that moment the spacecraft shook and Mira looked up. There was someone at the top of the ship. There was a thump as the spacecraft shattered and a figure suddenly appeared. A palm print pressed down from above towards Mira. Mira did not panic as she had cultivated for decades and was already used to such attacks. She had also experienced many life and death battles with the Eternals, where her life had been hanging by a thread. The attacker's palm technique was unpredictable, but it carried with it an unshakable pressure. It was the Stone Gate's 8 hands. A red lotus bloomed beneath Mira's feet, and it was bewitching yet beautiful. Traces of red flowed up from the lotus to resist the Stone Gate's 8 hands. The attacker's cultivation was similar to Mira's, and he had only used the second move to shatter the red lotus. However, Mira took advantage of this opportunity to dodge. A red longbow appeared in her hand, and she fired an arrow that was entwined with the power of the red lotus. This was the Red Lotus Witchbow. The attacker was surprised. "Not bad." He then tossed out a broken piece of wood from his cosmic ring. Not only did it shatter the arrow, but it also crashed into Mira, giving her an unprecedented sense of crisis. This was a void spirit, and it contained 3 times the amount of void spirit power that this person possessed. With this person's hunter realm cultivation, even if he had only cultivated for a little more than a year in the Void Spirit Dao Academy, his void spirit power would be close to that of a hunter's. 3 times the power of a hunter was not something that Mira could withstand. Mira was shocked. Where had this expert come from? The Above Heaven sect had unified the 5th mainland, and they had sent countless cultivators to patrol the 5th mainland to maintain order. She had been on patrol for more than half a year, but she had never encountered any danger. Now there had been a sudden attack and she did not know where this person had come from. At the critical moment, an ancient character appeared above Mira's head. It was a visualization technique. Currently, the entire Above Heaven sect could visualize the ancient golden characters, which directly increased one's power level. With the ancient characters, Mira raised her palm and slapped at the broken piece of wood. The power of the Red Lotus continued to rise as she used the serious art from the 5th pagoda to shatter the broken piece of wood. The attacker was shocked. This was impossible. Mira took several steps back and her face paled. "Who are you? How dare you attack the Above Heaven sect?" The attacker snorted and his figure disappeared. It was not because he was fast but because he had appeared beside the broken piece of wood. Mira's expression changed. An innate gift? She hurriedly took action, but the broken tree fell far away. The person appeared beside the broken tree and left immediately. Mira was just about to give chase when a green beam of light swept over without any warning. It brushed past Mira's body and swept through the starry sky, destroying everything in its path. Just the aftermath of the green beam had sent Mira flying. If it had hit her head-on, Mira would have died without a doubt. She lay on the ground and looked up. A man walked out of the broken wall of the spacecraft with a smug smile on his face. "That's why I said that the cultivation civilization is weak. Even if I go to the 6th Direction dojo, I won't go to the Reincarnation Dao College. The Wood Dao College is better. Who are you? Mira gritted her teeth. Blood flowed down her hair. She felt weak all over. The man walked in front of Mira and squatted down. Introduce yourself. He was just about to say something when he thought for a moment. Forget it. Just to be safe, I won't say anything. Teske, what a beautiful woman. Myra's gaze was cold. You know who I am? You dare attack the Above Heaven sect? The man sneered. The Above Heaven sect? That doesn't sound good to us. He raised a hand and placed it on Myra's cheek. I caught one. There's still time, let's catch another. Suddenly Mira was dragged in by a card. The man's expression changed and he hurriedly retreated. Lost tribesman, who is it? Come out. Behind him, a black figure slashed out with a dagger, leaving dozens of wounds on the man's body. The man had come from a different dimension and his cultivation wasn't high. He could only rely on the green energy to survive. The lost tribesman didn't have any way to deal with the green energy, so he simply brushed past the man, grabbed the card and left. The man was furious and waved his hand, causing the green energy to sweep out. Bastard, die. However, the lost tribesman had already disappeared. From the beginning to the end, Lu Yin had a panoramic view of this scene. 3 people had wanted to snatch Mira. The first had attacked directly, the second had wanted to take advantage of the situation, and the third had wanted to keep it a secret. This was the difference in thinking between the 6 direction associations due to their different civilizations. Mira was currently in the Lost Tribesman card, but it could be broken at any time. The card wasn't Mount Supreme and couldn't hide someone for long. The Lost Tribesman thought that he had caught Mira, but was it really that easy? How could someone from the Above Heaven sect be so easily captured? In outer space, the Lost Tribesman looked at the card in his hand with bright eyes. As long as he could capture one person, he would have the opportunity to listen to the teachings of a Grand Empyrean. Although the Lost Tribesman did not care about the teachings of a Grand Empyrean, many people had indeed broken through because of it. He hoped to be one step ahead of his fellow tribesmen and reach Xi Zhao's level or even surpass Xi Zhao. Suddenly, the card in his hand cracked and the Lost Tribesman was shocked. How was this possible? He subconsciously let go and the card shattered. Mira walked out in a sorry state. She hadn't completely lost her ability to move and she had been faking it. She hadn't expected another attacker to appear, so she had no choice but to use her money bomb to break the card and escape. When the Lost Tribesman saw Mira appear, he immediately fled. Someone who could break through the card's restrictions wasn't someone he could deal with. Unfortunately, it was too late. Mira took out a gun from her cosmic ring and shot the Lost Tribesman, knocking him out of the card. This was a microarray weapon. In the distance, the person with the green energy source chased after them. Mira looked over and saw that none of them would be able to escape. She put on her green-framed glasses, and the number kept jumping until it finally stopped at 460,000. He actually has a power level of 460,000. Looks like I'll have to change my weapon. Mira stared at the Lost Tribesman while remaining vigilant against the person with the green energy source. The person with the green energy source looked at Mira with surprise. You're out? At the same time, the number on his glasses kept jumping until it reached 480,000. You actually have a power level of 480,000? Mira raised her hand and fired a shot. Bang. At the same time, the person with the green energy source fired a beam of light. Both of their reactions were equally fast. The green energy source was split apart by the 5-array combination, and it pierced through the person with the green energy source's shoulder. The person looked down at his numb hand. How was this possible? Myra's power level had jumped from more than 100,000 to almost 500,000 in an instant, and the power of that attack had even exceeded 500,000. Impossible. After firing the shot, Mira took out a gun with her left hand and aimed it at the Lost Tribesman. Speak. Who are you people? The Lost Tribesman's eyes flashed. We failed. Go back. The person with the green energy source was indignant, but there was nothing he could do. Myra's personal strength and the power of her treasures were both on par with his, and they were in the primordial space, which made it easy for them to be surrounded. Go back. Mira fired without hesitation, aiming for their hearts. She wanted to incapacitate them. However, the 2 shots did not hit them. Instead, they stopped in the void, blocked by an invisible force. The Lost Tribesman and the person with the green energy source were confused, as they did not know where the force had come from to block the attack. Suddenly their brains shook and they fainted. Mira was shocked. There was still an expert here. A figure walked out from outer space. Well done. Mira stared blankly at the person who had appeared and was shocked. Luin. She quickly changed her greeting and bowed. Greetings, Pathmaster. Luin nodded. Heal yourself. You're injured as well. It's fine, Mira replied. She had not expected Luin to suddenly appear. This meant that he had seen everything that had just happened. Fortunately, she had performed well. Luin took out the lotus treasures from the cosmic rings of the lost tribesman and the person with the green energy source and admired them. These were good items. They were a grade 9 venerate lotus treasure that could withstand an attack from a progenitor. These two had not been able to use it in time, as they had thought that they could use it in the face of danger. However, if a progenitor really attacked them, they would not even be able to react in time. Luin stored the two away and looked at Mira. Your various techniques worked well together. Thank you, Pathmaster, Mira replied respectfully. Luin looked at her. How long has it been since we last met? Mira trembled. Many years. Luin sighed. Yes, many years. How's Michelle? Mira replied, she's fine. Luin did not say anything else and only reminded her, someone might attack you again. Stay alert at all times. Mira was puzzled. Pathmaster, who are these people? Luin waved a hand. There's no need to ask and you don't have to be merciful. If you can kill them, it'll be your skill. He then left with the two people. As for the first person who had attacked Mira, he had also been captured. He now had 3 more lotus treasures. A grade 9 venerate lotus could create so many lotus treasures. Although they could only withstand a single attack, it was still quite good. Luin did not know how many of these treasures she could create, but if everyone had one, the Eternals would have a headache. Mira was the closest to the Astral River, and it had only been 6 days since the people from the 6 directional training rites had arrived at the 5th mainland to find her. However, it would not be so easy to find the others. The 5th mainland was very large, and even if they had endless methods, it would not be easy to find other targets. Half a month later, in the erudite flow zone, when Xianxia was attacked, but this time his assailant used a lotus treasure to escape. 2 people had attacked him. One from the reincarnation spacetime and the other from the transcendent spacetime. One of them had a cultivation level close to that of an envoy and was second only to Jiang Xiaodao's group. He had believed that he could capture Wen Xianxia, while the other had activated the green energy source. In the end, they had been defeated by Wen Xianxia just like Mira, and they had used their lotus treasures to survive. It was impossible for Luin to capture everyone's lotus treasures. A few days later, Ling Gong was attacked, and the people from the 6 directional training rites were defeated as well. They were unlucky as Wen Xianxia and Ling Gong had been the closest to them. Not only were they powerful, but they also had no advantage over the above the heavens who had developed all sorts of external weapons. Their energy sources did not have much of an advantage. The top group of people had gone to the cosmic sea, which had caused the people from the 6 directional training rites to fail multiple times. 6 people from the 6 directional training rites had already returned in failure, and they were all covered in dirt. The most miserable one had been pierced through the heart by Ling Gong's spear, and he had almost died. He was lucky to have survived. Chapter 2577. More than half a month later, someone finally arrived at the western weaves of the Outerverse, where Ancestor Ling Tong was. After confirming Xu San's location, they launched an attack. Xu San was captured without being able to resist at all. Ancestor Ling Tong was stopped by Luin, and Xu San needed to be captured as well. However, it was not one person who had captured Xu San but 3. The 3 of them were targeting Xu San, which led to a battle between them. Just as they had guessed at the beginning, their greatest enemy was not the primordial space but their own people. Xu San's capture was like a signal, and the next person to be captured was Yo Yi. Soon after, Coco and Zhou Xian were all attacked and captured. 4 people were captured by the hexagon training rites in a row, and Luin had been keeping an eye on everything. He had made a move when Zhou Xian had been captured, and it was for no other reason than the fact that the person who had captured Zhou Xian had actually wanted to take her away. This was unacceptable. Luin had allowed Xu San and the others to be captured so that he could wipe them out once they were exposed and obtain many lotus treasures in one go. These people had captured Zhou Xian and the others because they wanted to capture more people so they wouldn't leave this spacetime. This was exactly what Lu Yin needed, and the ones who should have been captured were others. Zhou Day Knight wasn't among those who had been captured. That person had wanted to capture Zhou Day Knight and leave without even the slightest bit of ambition. I want to go, Zhou Day Knight said to Lu Yin resolutely. Lu Yin replied, the situation is complicated and I can't guarantee your safety. Zhou Day Knight replied, in this spacetime even if I cultivate to the limit, I'll only be able to reach Ancestor Daking's level at most. However, Daking is still very weak against those who are at a higher level. Lu Yin looked at her. Are you sure? Yes, Zhou Day Knight said. Lu Yin nodded. All right. Lu Yin left and Zhou Day Knight glanced at the unconscious woman. This was the woman who had wanted to capture her and had used the green energy source. Zhou Day Knight had been cultivating outside, so she didn't have any fog or composite array weapons, which was why she had been captured. The woman quickly regained consciousness, and Zhou Day Knight also pretended to be unconscious as she lay beside her. When the woman woke up, she looked around and saw the unconscious Zhou Day Knight. What had happened? She had clearly been about to leave, so why had she suddenly fallen unconscious? The woman didn't dare to think too much about it, so she decisively took Zhou Day Knight with her and left. She was also the first person to capture someone and return to the Sixth Direction training hall. Another month passed. On this day, someone made a move against Leon's armada. It was a shocking battle that almost overturned Universe Ocean. The one who had attacked was Xiao Qingfeng. His combat power alone was enough to challenge an expert with a combat power of around 700,000. In addition, he had fused with 6 civilizations, which allowed him to fight evenly with Heizage Leon. In the end, he had even used the blue energy source to heavily injure Heizage Leon. Fortunately, Big Sister appeared and easily beat Xiao Qingfeng into using the Lotus Treasure to escape. Yuan Sage had detailed information about the situation of the Fifth Mainland, but he knew too little about Big Sister. Big Sister was no longer the Big Sister she used to be. She was now a terrifying expert who had recovered part of the Nether Ancestors' power. She could fight against Xia Shenji's doppelganger in the starry sky of trees. How could someone like Xiao Qingfeng be able to capture her? Big Sister's intervention had also revealed the source of the truth behind this trial. Lu Yin had acted immediately and saved Zhou Xian and the others. He had obtained 5 Lotus treasures in one go, including the 3 from before and himself. He now had 9 Lotus treasures. He Shu and the others also immediately learned that Xiao Qingfeng had been beaten back to the Sixth Direction training rites. They no longer wanted to capture Heizage Leon and Big Sister. As for Wendy Yushan, it was similarly difficult for them to capture her. Frostwave Weave, where she was located, was within the Above Heaven sect's territory. They would only go there if they were seeking death. They had no choice but to change their target. Even if they could not capture the most valuable treasure, they could not return empty-handed. Otherwise it would be too embarrassing. Fog surrounded Wen Sanxi's body as he looked at He Shu, who was wearing a blue and white robe. You're from the Sixth Direction training rites? He Shu replied, come with me. There's no point in struggling. It'll only bring disaster to your Wen family. Wen Sanxi replied, that will depend on your ability. He Shu did not want to waste any more time, so he immediately put on the red energy source. His power level of over 1,000,000 exploded, leaving Wen Sanxi unable to retaliate. Ling Gong had also been captured by Su Ji and Su Yu. One void god had charged forward while the other had launched a sneak attack. 2 people had been captured in a row, and Lu Yin had displayed his strength by stepping on the stars and intimidating the entire Fifth Mainland. He had borrowed Progenitor Chen's strength to frighten the remaining people from the Sixth Direction training rites into retreating. Jiang Xiaodao hurriedly tore through the void and returned. Was this Lu Yin's strength? What a freak. Jiang Xiaodao felt very sullen. Ever since he had learned of the trial, he had kept a low profile. His goal had been to follow Xiao Qingfeng and take advantage of the situation. He had thought that Xiao Qingfeng would be able to capture Heizage Leon during the battle at the Cosmic Sea, and he had been prepared to take action as well. However, Big Sis had revealed her terrifying strength, which had scared him so much that he had not even dared to show his face. Xiao Qingfeng had been beaten back. Now he had changed his target and wanted to go to the Astral Beast Domain to capture Ku Wei. After all, the Astral Beast Domain was far away from the Above Heaven sect, so it should be fine. However, he had not expected Lu Yin to be so terrifying. Just in case, he decided to return. At the Six Direction training rites, Ling Gong, Zhou Xian, Shi Jiao, and the others exchanged glances with Xianxia. It was worse than expected. Fortunately, we managed to capture him, Xi Bing said. Su Xiangyin looked at Xiao Qingfeng and the others who had returned. We're missing a group. That Lu Yin made a move, so he should have captured them. Lotus treasures can withstand an attack from a progenitor, but they need time to react. How will they react against a progenitor? Mu San asked. Su Xiangyin frowned. Without Xianxia, did that mean that Xianxia had not returned? Shi Jiao sensed this as well. Does anyone know where Xianxia is? No one answered. Yuting said, perhaps he hasn't returned. As long as he doesn't expose himself, a progenitor won't be able to find him. He was the only one present who knew that Lu Yin had come from the primordial space, and he was also the only one who had high hopes for Lu Yin. Perhaps this Xianxia would be able to surprise them. A few days later, at the Six Direction training rites, Xianxia appeared with a flustered expression on his face. Shi Jiao and the others had been waiting for him, and when they saw Lu Yin appear, they heaved sighs of relief. Su Xiangyin walked over to Lu Yin and asked in concern, "Are you all right?" Lu Yin raised his head and looked at Su Xiangyin. "I was fortunate enough to not disappoint you." He then pulled someone out from behind him, Wendy Yushan. The light from the lotus treasure slowly dissipated and everyone around them was stunned. Only when Sansi, Ling Gong and Zhou Xian, who had been captured, looked at this scene strangely. They had naturally discussed this with Lu Yin before they had been captured. Ling Gong looked at Lu Yin strangely. How could someone who was supposed to be so high and mighty act so? If it were her, she would have ordered these trash to scram long ago. Lu Yin licked his lips. Senior. Only then did Su Xiangyin react. Lu Yin had truly shocked him too much. This woman was Wendy Yushan, someone who had practically lived right under the nose of the sect above the sky. She was someone who was highly valued by Lu Yin, the Tao master of the primordial space. She was one of the 3 most important people on the list, and bringing her here was equivalent to obtaining a seat at the Grand Empyrean Tea Party. This seat was the reason why everyone was stunned. No one present had obtained a seat, not even one. Not even the 9,990,000 seats to listen to the teachings had been obtained. Shi Jiao stepped forward when she saw the fear and confusion in Lu Yin's eyes. Her eyes burned with passion. How did you capture her? Wendy Yushan looked ahead. Are you people from the Six Direction Association? Shi Jiao looked at Wendy Yushan. That's right. Welcome to the Six Direction Association. Wendy Yushan's gaze was cold as she looked past Shi Jiao at Ling Gong. Ling Gong said, eat and drink as you should. Don't think too much. Just wait for your Tao Master Lu to come and save you. A sneer came from the man from the 3 sovereign space named Zhou Xian. You want to be saved after coming to the Six Direction Association? Do you really think that the primordial space is still the glorious sect above the sky? That era has already disappeared. Your so-called sect above the sky is just struggling at death's door and deceiving yourselves. When Sansi looked at him, think twice before you act. What you say will only bring disaster to yourself. Zhou Xian suddenly attacked and sent Sansi flying with his sovereign's force. With his strength as a half-step sovereign, a casual attack was enough to heavily injure Sansi. Sansi spat out blood and lay on the ground with a pale face. You're the one who should watch your attitude, Zhou Xian said coldly. The others did not stop him. Whether it was the past or the current trial, they did not have a good impression of the primordial space. Sansi struggled to get up and stared at Zhou Xian calmly. Old man, why don't you kill all of us and see if you can capture a few more hostages from the 5th mainland? Ling Gong mocked. Zhou Xian looked at her coldly. Beside her, Zhou Xian spoke up as well. You guys are just sending yourselves to your deaths. Zhou Xian was furious and was about to attack when Shi Jiao shouted, That's enough. They are the people that Senior Yuan Sage wants. Kill them and explain to him. Zhou Xian's expression changed as he recalled how terrifying a Yuan Sage was. He could only stop. Xianxia, how did you capture Wendy Yushan? Su Xiangyin asked in a gentle tone. Everyone looked over. Xiao Qingfeng was not around as he had been injured and had gone into seclusion. However, He Shu and the others were present and they all looked on curiously. They knew how difficult this task was and if they were not careful they would be finished. Thus, they stopped underestimating the primordial space. Ever since they had sensed the strength of the fifth mainland, they had not dared to approach the sect above the sky. They did not believe that they could capture someone right under their noses. How had Xianxia managed to do so? Yuting's eyes flickered as he looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin coughed and looked at Su Ji and Su Yu. Actually, I have to thank the Su siblings. Without them, I would not have been able to capture this woman. Everyone looked at Su Ji and Su Yu. Was this related to them? Su Ji and Su Yu looked at each other in confusion. It's related to us? Chapter 2578. Lu Yin thought about it and said, I know that I'm weak, so I didn't act rashly. Instead, I tried to find out the relationships between the people on the list and spent a lot of effort. Fortunately, I managed to find out that Wendy Yushan had a good relationship with someone called Ling Gong, and she was able to join the 10 Arbiters Council under his guidance. That's why I boldly waited at the Lingling clan. As long as someone managed to capture Ling Gong, Wendy Yushan would definitely leave the Above Heaven sect and head to the Lingling clan. As expected, Wendy Yushan arrived a few days after Ling Gong was taken away. I managed to capture her just in time, but she had someone protecting her. If it weren't for my many tricks in Lianbao, I might not have been able to return alive. Su Xiangyin looked at Lu Yin and then at the Su siblings. I see. Su Yu gritted her teeth. Xianxia used us. Lu Yin smiled. I didn't use you. It was just a coincidence, Shi Jiao praised. Smart. Does that mean that you didn't believe Senior Yuan Xing's information from the start? Lu Yin was solemn. Of course not. Senior Yuan Xing's information is very accurate, and the fact that these people were captured is proof. However, Senior is one of the 3 reverends and 9 sages, so he doesn't have time to waste on the Genesis space. Only he knows about the Genesis space, which is why I tried to find out more. Despicable. Wendy Yushan was cold. Ling Gong mocked. Is everyone in the Six Paths Association such despicable people? They even use their own people. Disgusting. Su Xiangyin scolded. Shut up. As long as we can achieve our goal and not violate the alliance, we can do anything. He looked at Lu Yin with admiration. You don't rely on your innate talent to be arrogant. Instead, you know how to judge the situation and use your intelligence. Xianxia, your future is limitless. Yuting also praised. Rare. Third Master Mu said, only such a person can survive on the battlefield. How can he be brainless? Su Yu felt that his words were grating, as if he was saying that they were brainless. Wendy Yushan's capture was equivalent to them helping Lu Yin. If they had waited longer, Wendy Yushan's arrival would have given them a seat at the Grand Empyrean Tea Party. She had disliked Lu Yin from the very beginning, and she had felt somewhat apologetic towards him because of the lightning tree in the wood spirit region. But now she was even more annoyed. He was a bastard. Seems like no one will be able to make it back. The 12 of them have disappeared without using their lotus treasures. Either something happened to them after they used their lotus treasures, or they didn't have time to use them. The biggest possibility is that they were captured by an extremely strong individual. Shi Jiao looked around. I'll leave the rest to Senior Yuan Sage. If the 12 of them are still alive, Senior Yuan Sage will definitely bring them back. However, don't get your hopes up. All the cultivators from the 6 direction training rites bowed in unison. Yes, sir. Su Xiangyin left and happily returned to the Void God spacetime to report Lu Yin's achievements. A seat at the Grand Empyrean Tea Party was enough to make anyone jealous. Yuting gave Lu Yin a deep look before leaving as well. As for Zhou Xian and the others, they were taken to the reincarnation spacetime by Shi Jiao. Before they left, when Sansi and the others looked at Lu Yin and Lu Yin met their gazes. He didn't know if this trip would be a blessing or a curse. Originally, only when Sansi had been on the list, and Ling Gong had been taken away because they had volunteered to cultivate in the 6 direction training rites. They had not interacted much in the 5th mainland since they were the 10 arbiters. The difference between them and Lu Yin was too great and they could not accept it. As for Wendy Yushan and Zhou Xian, they had volunteered to go. This was especially true for Wendy Yushan, who had taken the initiative to contact Lu Yin after learning of this matter. Her attitude was abnormally firm and Lu Yin could not refuse her. He could only take credit for Xianxia and bring her here. No matter what, they would be fine for the time being since the Yuan Sage still wanted to use them to negotiate with Lu Yin. Elsewhere, Yuting met with He Ran and reported the results of the trial. He Ran was shocked. Xianxia captured someone important and obtained a seat at the Grand Empyrean Tea Party? Yuting nodded. Yes. His attitude towards Ran was not as humble as Kujian's, and he did not kneel to her either. This was because the Yu family's status in the transcending spacetime was extraordinary. Ran sighed. This Xianxia is really talented. His talent is outstanding and his intelligence is not bad. Now that he has obtained a seat at the Grand Empyrean Tea Party, his future will be even brighter. If he joins the Great Stone sect and inherits the Great Stone Saint's position, he will be extraordinary. Yuting continued. Regardless of whether he joins the Great Stone sect or the Void God spacetime, he has a high chance of becoming an extreme powerhouse in the future. Bring Zijing here. Ran suddenly ordered. Someone secretly brought Zijing over. When Zijing heard that Lu Yin had captured Wendy Yushan in the primordial space and obtained a seat at the Grand Empyrean Tea Party, she was not surprised at all. Aren't you surprised? Ran was curious. Zijing replied, My lord is very clear about Xianxi's origins and he understands that space-time too well. Ran nodded. That's true. Forget about Wendy Yushan, he might even be able to capture someone from the above sky sect. Zijing suddenly thought of something. My lord, perhaps the primordial space has those resources. Ran's eyes lit up. The primordial space has them? Zijing respectfully replied, The primordial space is the largest of all the parallel spacetimes, and it developed the above sky sect to its peak. When it comes to resources, perhaps no other spacetime can compare to it. Yuting interrupted. The 6 parties have agreed that no one is allowed to enter the primordial space without permission. Zijing looked at Yuting. No one is allowed to enter without permission, but there is no agreement that anyone from the primordial space cannot leave. Yuting was stunned and he was speechless. Ran straightened up. Bring Xianxia to me. Yuting looked at Ran. If the reincarnation spacetime finds out, I won't be able to explain myself. Ran's voice gradually turned cold. Why should I explain myself? We are from the transcendent spacetime and we are not subordinate to the reincarnation spacetime. We are not trash like the 3 sovereign spacetime. Bring Xianxia to me immediately. Yuting hesitated for a moment before nodding. All right. He turned to leave, but before he left he looked deeply at Zijing. He had interacted with this woman before and at that time she had given him the impression that she was Qing Shui. But now things had changed. Back at the 6th Direction Training Hall, Yuting had come looking for Lu Yin just as he was about to head to the Eternal Kingdom. He was glad that Yuting had arrived just a moment later, and he would have disappeared from the 6th Direction Training Hall. Even an idiot would know that something was wrong. Xianxia, come with me to see Lady Ran, Yuting said before leading Lu Yin away. Soon Lu Yin arrived at the staircase filled with blooming flowers. He faced Ran and bowed. Xianxia greets Lady Ran. Ran's voice was gentle and pleasant. Xianxia, you must be very familiar with the primordial space. Yes, I am very familiar with it. Zijing took out a list and handed it to Lu Yin. Take a look and see if you can find the resources listed here. Lu Yin took the list and met Zijing's eyes. Do you need them? Zijing grunted and did not say anything else before retreating. When Ran saw this scene, her eyes flashed. She did not say anything. Lu Yin looked at the list and was surprised. Wasn't this the list of resources he had gotten from Matriarch Mu? Mu Jun had attacked the Thunder Sealing clan for these resources, and Mu Jun's trade partner was hyperspace. It seemed that hyperspace really needed these resources. How is it, Xianxia? Do you have them in the primordial space? Ran asked with a strange expression. I don't know, Lu Yin replied. You don't know. There are only names on this list. The primordial space and hyperspace have different definitions for resources, so I don't know what these names represent. However, you can look for them in the primordial space as long as you have samples or diagrams. Ran looked at Zijing. Give him samples. She then stared at Lu Yin. Are you really willing to help me look for them in the primordial space? Lu Yin was sincere. Zijing has been taken care of by you, lady. I'm more than happy to do something for you. Ran was satisfied. Alright, Kujian will go with you. As long as you can find these resources in the primordial space, just tell me what you want. Don't worry about Zijing. I'll make her an existence second only to me in hyperspace. Thank you, lady. Lu Yin was grateful. By the way, have you seen Bai Qian? He ran suddenly asked. Lu Yin was puzzled. Bai Qian? The woman who appeared when you first met Lady, Zijing reminded him. Lu Yin thought about it and was puzzled. That arrogant woman? He Ran's lips curled up. She loved to hear others slander Bai Qian. Lady, I didn't see her, Lu Yin replied. He Ran was puzzled. She participated in the secret auction with you. She should have been captured by Tu Shuangshuang. Lu Yin was helpless. I was captured by that crazy Tu Shuangshuang as soon as I came out. I'm not sure about the others. He Ran nodded. Fine, it's fine if she died outside. Xianxia, when can we go to the primordial space? Due to the trial, the primordial space is in a state of panic. There are still 12 people who haven't returned. I don't know if they've been captured or something else. I want to wait for a while. Zijing respectfully said, Lady, you can't wait too long. These resources need to arrive in half a year at the latest. Otherwise it will delay the experiment. Lu Yin looked at Zijing. That urgent? Zijing replied, very urgent. Think of a way. The primordial space is so big. Even if we go, as long as we don't expose ourselves, it's unlikely that anything will happen. Lu Yin thought about it. All right, I'll do it as soon as possible. He Ran smiled. Then you can go back first. I'll wait for your news. Soon, Lu Yin was led back to the Hexagon training hall by Yu Ting. When they arrived, Yu Ting wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, he didn't say anything and just left. Lu Yin quickly announced that he was going into seclusion and was returning to the Above the Sky sect. He Ran had summoned him and brought up the resources, which was unexpected. However, this was a good surprise. Half a month later, on the 5th mainland, the Above the Sky sect welcomed the Dragon Ancestor for the 6th time. This time the Dragon Ancestor came with Yuan Sheng. Lu Yin walked out naturally and looked at the two. Dragon Ancestor, you're really shameless. Do you really want to be kicked out after coming here repeatedly? The Dragon Ancestor was furious. Lu Xiaoxian, you're too arrogant. Even your father has to be respectful to me. Nonsense. Lu Yin looked at Yuan Sheng in disdain. It's a bit later than I expected. Chapter 2579. Lu Xiaoxian, you will know how to treat me in the future. The reincarnation spacetime cannot be insulted. Lu Yin sat down. So what? Do I have to pour tea and bow to my enemy? You're lucky I didn't ask you to scram. You should have brought Xiaoxinji back. I told you that last time. Lu Yin sneered. I told you to scram too. Ancestor Long frowned. Lu Xiaoxian, you're a guest. Don't be rude and embarrass the primordial space. Lu Yin looked over. What do you think the Six Direction Society thinks of the primordial space? With a wave of his hand, the void was torn apart and 12 people fell out. They were the ones from the Six Direction Society who had come to train. Ask them what the primordial space is like in their hearts. Don't they know? Ancestor Long's expression turned ugly. He naturally knew how the Six Direction Society viewed the primordial space. They wished that the primordial space was primitive, without order, and would kill each other. It would be best if it was destroyed by the Eternals. If not for the Eternals, the Six Direction Society might have already attacked the primordial space. Yuan Sheng sneered. You have a sharp tongue. Little thing, I'm not here to discuss this with you. Since you know why I'm here and didn't attack immediately, does that mean you're willing to accept my conditions? Lu Yin's expression sank. I can't do anything about shameless things. What do you want? Let me remind you, don't go too far. Yuan Sheng clasped his hands behind his back. Support the three sovereigns spacetime. Lu Yin wasn't surprised. Sure, release my people. Impossible. I've already agreed to your conditions. Your people will live well, but they can't come back. Lu Yin thought about it. My people will join the Six Direction training ground. Yuan Sheng raised his brows. Are you negotiating with me? Lu Yin looked him in the eye. What else? Yuan Sheng stared at Lu Yin. This was the third time they had met, and the first 2 times this kid had attacked, giving him the feeling that he would rather die than live in dishonor. The only reason he hadn't attacked this time was because there were hostages, and he couldn't see what Lu Yin was thinking. Forget it, it didn't matter. As long as this kid could support the 3 sovereigns spacetime, the 4-way scales would have a chance to attack this spacetime. Sure, Yuan Sheng said coldly. You'll be treated the same as the others, Lu Yin added. Yuan Sheng replied coldly, since they have joined the Six Direction training hall, I don't care about their backgrounds. At the very least, I can guarantee that the management of the Six Direction Training Hall will not do anything to them. That's enough, Lu Yin said as he tossed the 12 people over to Yuan Xing. It's beneath me to deal with such trash. Where is their Lianbao? Yuan Sage said. I don't know. Yuan Xing's face twitched. Do you know that it was a gift from Venerate Lotus? I don't know, Lu Yin replied. Yuan Xing took a deep breath and nodded. All right, I hope you don't regret it. Lu Yin was disdainful. He had even been threatened by a Grand Empyrean, let alone a level 9 Lotus Venerable. Would the reincarnation spacetime treat him better if he returned Lianbao? We're done here. Dragon Ancestor gritted his teeth. As an ancestor, he had actually been driven away time and time again. He had never been so humiliated in his entire life. Yuan Xing's eyes were cold. Lu Xiaoxian, if I were you, I would recognize the situation clearly. The Lu family's sins have already been repaid. Don't let the reincarnation spacetime take action. When the time comes, it won't be as simple as being exiled. Lu Yin found it funny. How many times have you threatened me? Yuan Xing's face turned gloomy. Have I ever been afraid? Lu Yin asked again. Yuan Xing snorted and turned to leave. Lu Yin's voice rang out again. Have you delivered the message I asked someone to pass to you? Yuan Xing paused. If you want to pay with blood, come to the Grand Empyrean Tea Party. No one will interfere there. As long as you ask, you can challenge me. I will give you a fair chance to kill me provided that you can come. With that, he disappeared. Dragon Ancestor said in a low voice. Yuan Xing said that you must support the 3 monarch spacetime, so you did. Any resistance is meaningless to him. Lu Xiaoxian, you are no longer facing the 4 cardinal scales, but the 6 cardinal associations, 6 powerful civilizations. Lu Yin's tone was cold. For Longxi's sake, I'll remind you again. The Eternals have been expelled, and the fate of the Lu family's ancestor will be your fate in the future. Dragon Ancestor frowned. There's no need to say such things. Do you plan to support the 3 monarchs spacetime yourself or send Elder Chan? Elder Chan, Lu Yin did not hesitate. If Elder Chan is gone, who will protect Shenwu continent for you? That's my business. If you want to open that passage, you can try. Dragon Ancestor had left and his goal had been achieved. With Elder Chan gone, only Lu Xiaoxian would be left on the 5th mainland. It seemed like the situation had returned to how it had been before. The agreement between the 4 cardinal scales and Lu Xiaoxian still existed, but with the addition of the 6 cardinal associations, there was more room for manipulation. Lu Xiaoxian still had to protect Shenwu continent. Lu Xiaoxian would not exist for long. As he watched Dragon Ancestor leave, Wang Wen walked over. We've already given the 6 cardinal associations a handle on us, so their fear of us will greatly decrease. There's even a possibility that they'll play cat and mouse with us. To them we can crush us at any time, but to you we're dancing on a knife's edge. Although we're in the dark and they're in the light, the difference between us is too great. I know, Lu Yin replied. The 4 cardinal scales wants to use the 6 cardinal associations to deal with me. If I hadn't captured Mu Jun, the first to deal with me would have been the 3 monarch spacetime. Since I can suppress the 3 monarch spacetime and prevent them from making a move, I can also deal with the other spacetimes. Transdimensional has recently been developing a terrifying cultivation technique. If it succeeds, it might be able to change the situation of the 6 cardinal associations. You want to make a move against transdimensional now? Wang Wen was astonished as the original plan had not been developed so quickly. Lu Yin replied, they're the ones who delivered themselves to me. Which spacetime organization do you think is suitable to cooperate with transdimensional? The technocracy? Wang Wen was puzzled. Lu Yin shook his head. There are too many similar civilizations, but transdimensional is far superior to the technocracy. If the technocracy cooperates with transdimensional, they'll only be passive, and they'll be looked down upon by transdimensional. Who else is there? Wang Wen did not understand. Now that the 5th mainland had been unified by the above heaven, the technocracy could not cooperate. Could it be the astral beast domain? Lu Yin looked towards the south. Home of the gods. When Zi Jing had shown him the list of resources, Lu Yin had already thought of the home of the gods. First, the people there called themselves gods and were rather arrogant. They did not place anyone in their eyes, and this attitude reassured transdimensional. It showed that the people of the home of the gods were not scheming, and it also showed that they were not willing to submit to the above heaven. Second, the home of the gods methods came from the true scripture of Aeon evolution. It was too unique, and it was not an exaggeration to call it mystical. It was something that had been created out of nothing, and it was not naturally inferior to transdimensional. At least for now, even if Lu Yin had come into contact with the 6 cardinal associations and could fight against progenitors, the true scripture of Aeon evolution's cultivation and combat methods were absolutely unique, and it was enough to shock transdimensional. Only by being strong could one be respected. The mirror god had never dreamed that Lu Yin would one day descend upon the home of the gods. Lu Yin could fight against progenitors, and the ruins of the home of the gods would not be of much help to him. They all wanted to enter the burial gardens to search for the ruins. "Greetings, Pathmaster." The mirror god bowed. The people of the home of the gods bowed as well. Lu Yin looked at the mirror god. "You be a little arrogant." The mirror god blinked. He was at a loss. Arrogance? A few days later, Elder Chan officially headed to the 3 sovereigns' spacetime to provide support. Bai Xing led the way and brought him there. The 5th mainland had thought that Elder Chan's departure would cause the 5th mainland to lose a progenitor, but the Frigid School wanted to establish a branch there. Wuxia, the Frigid School's leader, had personally come to oversee the 5th mainland. This result was even worse than Elder Chan's departure. At least in comparison, the Astral Tree Society had lost a progenitor while the 5th mainland had not. The 4 cardinal scales naturally could not allow Wuxia to leave, but no matter how they tried to stop him, they could not make him stay. Wuxia's strength was not any weaker than theirs. After Lu Yin made arrangements for the home of the gods, he used a lotus treasure to travel to the 6 cardinal training grounds. When he arrived at Tai Void, he vanished without anyone noticing. He felt a little pain that he had used up a lotus treasure just like that. No, he had to find the coordinates of Tai Void. Otherwise, he would have to use up a lotus treasure every time he went back and forth, which he could not afford. Shi Jiao and the others must have left their own traces on the coordinates. Otherwise, they would not have been able to locate Tai Void. A few days after Lu Yin returned to the 6 cardinal training grounds, he took the initiative to find Yu Ting and asked to meet He Ran. It was obvious that Yu Ting was not very willing to take Lu Yin to see He Ran, but he could not refuse. "Xianxia, do you know the 6 cardinal associations' attitude towards the primordial space?" Yu Ting suddenly asked, his tone calm. Lu Yin replied, "There was a gathering when I went to the primordial space to train. I heard them talk about it and it seemed to be somewhat hostile." Yu Ting explained, "It's not exactly hostile. It's just that there are some old grudges that have been passed down, making it difficult for the 6 cardinal associations to have a good impression of the primordial space. This has led to some radical people wanting to do something to the primordial space. However, due to the threat of the Eternals and the fact that the primordial space once gave birth to the celestial sect, the 6 cardinal associations have come to an agreement not to interfere with the primordial space." Lu Yin listened respectfully. Not to interfere means that no matter how the primordial space develops, we will not participate, and we will not let the primordial space know about the 6 cardinal associations' existence. This is similar to the primordial space's attitude towards us during the celestial sect's era. Yu Ting then reminisced about the past. "The Eternals are a colossus, and although I don't want to admit it, I have to say that they are becoming more and more difficult to deal with." He looked at Lu Yin. "The more time passes, the harder it becomes to deal with them. This is because the Eternals are constantly growing stronger, and the possibility of our 6 cardinal associations defeating the Eternals alone is too low. Thus, the primordial space is an existence that cannot be ignored. Perhaps one day they will reappear in the glory of the celestial sect. Only then will they have a chance of defeating the Eternals. Even though they have fallen apart now, they can still contain a portion of the Eternals' strength. In terms of strength, they far surpass the 3 monarchs' spacetime. They are a sharp weapon against the Eternals." Chapter 2580. Lu Yin's eyes flashed as Yu Ting's attitude towards the 5th mainland was rather pertinent. Yu Ting's words were filled with resentment and disgust, but he also had hopes of resisting the everlasting race. He was different from those who only wanted to conquer the 5th mainland. "Senior, are you telling me this because of resources?" Yu Ting's expression was complicated. "If it's just resources, then it's fine." He paused and looked at Lu Yin again. "I know about your grudge with Lu Yin." Lu Yin subconsciously clenched his fists. Yuting said, perhaps you wish to borrow He Ran's power to deal with Lu Yin. That's not what I'm thinking, Lu Yin immediately denied. Yuting raised a hand to stop him. There's no need to explain. If there's a grudge, then it should be avenged. If there's power to borrow, then why not use it? You don't need to worry about this. Lu Yin fell silent. I'm only telling you this to let you know. No, rather I'm giving you a choice. With your relationship with Zijing, it's not impossible for you to borrow He Ran's power to deal with the primordial space. Besides that, Lu Yin already has many enemies in the primordial space, and with He Shu's attitude, it's not impossible to destroy the current above heaven. However, you should consider the everlasting race. We humans are not without disasters. The everlasting race is a sword that has always been hanging in the air. I hope that if you have the ability to take revenge, you won't implicate the entire primordial space, Yuting concluded. Lu Yin was shocked. Senior, you think that I have the ability to implicate the entire primordial space? Yuting stared at Lu Yin with a burning gaze. Zijing's influence in the primordial space is growing. Sir He Ran and He Shu have a bad attitude towards the primordial space, and you're highly regarded by the void. With the fight over the stone gate, you can at least influence the primordial space's attitude towards the primordial space. Xianxia, the current you is enough to threaten Lu Yin. That was all Yuting said, and he tore through the void and brought Lu Yin to He Ran. My lord, has Zijing mentioned the home of the gods to you? Lu Yin immediately said to He Ran. Zijing was already standing to the side, and when she heard about the home of the gods, she immediately replied. She mentioned it a little. I've already sorted out everything I know about the primordial space for you. On the stairs He Ran, the home of the gods? Is that Neoverse power of the Neoverse universe? Yes, Lu Yin replied. He Ran asked, do they have resources? The home of the gods controls a huge amount of the Neoverse. Not only that, but they've also set up arrangements throughout the entire Fifth Mainland in order to collect the ruins of the Rune Line civilization. Whether it's commerce, the establishment of sects, or even empires, they've done everything. Can be said that they have a huge influence on the Fifth Mainland. I once had a good relationship with Tai Yisheng, and I can use him to connect with the home of the gods and use their influence to gather the resources that they need. Zijing retorted, Tai Yisheng seems to have a good relationship with Lu Yin. We can't ask him. Lu Yin replied, wrong, Tai Yisheng hates me. Lu. Of the. SU. Lu Yin confidently replied, that was in the beginning. Actually, the home of the gods didn't think much of anyone. They believed that the rune progenitor's inheritance could create something out of nothing, and they considered themselves to be gods. In their eyes, Lu Yin was just a genius. As Lu Yin grew stronger and stronger, the home of the gods did indeed have thoughts of clinging on to Lu Yin. The violet god was Xiaji's clone that had been hidden in the home of the gods. Lu Yin had exposed her plans for the Neoverse. Very few people knew about this, and the home of the gods had sealed off the information. Even those from beyond spacetime couldn't find anything. What they could find out was what Lu Yin wanted them to find out. Lu Yin told Zijing about the violet god according to his plan. Zijing was stunned. She really didn't know anything about this. He Ran said, I'm not interested in the primordial space's internal grudges, but can the home of the gods really help me gather resources? Absolutely. Lu Yin was certain. They have a great influence on the Fifth Mainland, and they seem to have a good relationship with the Above Heaven sect. It'll be easy for them to gather resources. He Ran's eyes lit up. Kujian. Kujian walked out of the void and bowed. My lord. Go with Xianxia and see if they can gather resources, He Ran said. Kujian nodded and looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin politely said, sorry to trouble you, senior. Kujian nodded. He was the one who had brought Lu Yin and Zijing from the primordial space to beyond spacetime. It hadn't been long since then, but his high and mighty attitude had disappeared. Kujian quickly tore through the void and brought Lu Yin to the primordial space. Zijing was worried. My lord, if we can't gather resources in the home of the gods, what about Xianxia? Don't worry, He Ran said. He's someone from the void god universe and he's your man. Even if Lu Yin finds out, it'll be fine. Zijing respectfully said, I'm just worried about delaying your plan. He Ran smiled. It's fine. If the home of the gods can't do it, we can find someone else. I'm sure the primordial space will have many resources and Xianxia has already done a great service for us. I won't mistreat him. Even if he joins the Void God universe I can still help him. Her meaning was simple. Even if Lu Yin joined the Void God universe she could still deal with him. He was confident, but she couldn't see Zijing's mocking gaze when she lowered her head. Pak Lu Yin? How could that be? If it wasn't for the bigger picture he would have captured you. Elsewhere Kujian brought Lu Yin to the Neoverse. They had a way to locate the fifth mainland but that was all they could do. They couldn't pinpoint the exact location of the fifth mainland, but they couldn't be too far away from the coordinates. If they could land in the Neoverse, it meant that the coordinates of the Void God universe were in the Neoverse. Where's the home of the gods? Kujian asked. Lu Yin identified it for a long time before pointing. There. A white halo appeared around Kujian as he brought Lu Yin through the void towards the home of the gods. The home of the gods was built on the backs of gigantic statues, and it had a strange scenery. Rainbows hung in the sky, clouds drifted in the air and bells rang out. Sacred birds and beasts played around, and a fragrance lingered in the sky. The statues were all enemies of the home of the gods. After being killed, they had transformed into giants and carried the home of the gods on their backs to atone for their sins. For example, Annihilation and the Violet God had transformed their faces into giants and carried the home of the gods on their backs. Countless people were kneeling beneath the statues, their gazes fanatical as they looked up at the sky as if they were looking at a god. Lu Yin was stunned when he saw this scene for the first time and Kujian was the same. The Void God universe wasn't a cultivation civilization and it developed cultivation techniques so there was no such thing as worship. Looking at the fanatical gazes of these people, Kujian felt as if he could kill them with a single sentence. This was something he had never experienced before. Kujian was shocked. Although he had the strength of a half-ancestor that was only because of his energy source. His body was far from that strength and he didn't have the temperament to match his strength. He was even more shocked than Lu Yin had been when he first saw this. Lu Yin explained, "This is the home of the gods. They consider themselves gods and can create something out of nothing. They can create or erase anything. What they can do is something only gods can do." Kujian suppressed his shock. "Create something out of nothing?" Lu Yin replied, "It's a mysterious power. If Senior wants to see it I can have them show it to you." As he spoke, Daoist walked out of the home of the gods and laughed. "Brother Seven, it's been a while. Where have you been?" "I went to a mysterious place but let's not talk about that for now. Brother Daoist, let me introduce you. This is Senior Kujian." His expression was solemn. "This is a half-ancestor Senior." Daoist was shocked. "Half-ancestor?" Kujian calmly looked at him. Daoist looked at Kujian with a serious expression and stepped forward. "Junior Daoist greets Senior half-ancestor." Kujian nodded. "Sorry to disturb you." Daoist replied, "It's a great honor for Senior to come to the home of the gods. This way please." Kujian glanced at Lu Yin and then walked towards the home of the gods. With the arrival of a half-ancestor, everyone with status in the home of the gods appeared, led by the Mirror God. After a round of greetings, Lu Yin revealed his intentions. The Mirror God chased everyone away, leaving only Daoist behind. "These resources aren't simple and are very difficult to obtain." Lu Yin asked, "Senior Mirror God, with the home of the gods' abilities, is it difficult?" The Mirror God and Daoist exchanged glances before looking at Kujian. "If possible, we would naturally be willing to help Senior Kujian. However, these resources are under the control of the above heavens, so obtaining them is extremely difficult." "Difficult means that it's possible?" Kujian asked. The Mirror God sighed. "In the past, there was no sect above the heavens in this region of space. The home of the gods was a colossus in the Neoverse, so it was easy for us to gather some resources. However, the sect above the heavens was established and Dao Lord Lu controlled the entire fifth mainland. Not only that, but the statues in the home of the gods will also need to be removed." Daoist's tone was unpleasant. Kujian was shocked. "Lu Yin even cares about this." The Mirror God smiled bitterly. Lu Yin hurriedly asked, "Senior Mirror God, is there any way to obtain these resources?" The Mirror God thought about it. "There are always loopholes in any control. With the home of the gods' abilities, it's not impossible to obtain these resources, but the price is too high and Before the mirror god could finish, Kujian smiled. That's good. No matter the price, I can afford it as long as you can obtain the resources. The mirror god was astonished and looked at him suspiciously, but he remained silent. Taishan was the same. Lu Yin looked at Kujian. Senior, the price is one thing, but if it's exposed that we're collecting these resources, the home of the gods might be destroyed. Lu Yin is known for his ruthlessness. The mirror god bitterly replied, that's how the violet god died. Taishan gritted his teeth. It was because the violet god objected to Lu Yin entering the Runeline ruins that she was killed. Lu Yin this. Taishan, mirror god scolded. Taishan didn't dare to say anything else. Chapter 2581. Kujian frowned and white energy suddenly erupted from him, sweeping through the home of the gods. I must obtain these resources no matter the price. As he spoke, the entire home of the gods began to tremble under the pressure. Those kneeling were shocked and they quickly begged for forgiveness. Mirror God, Supreme Immortal, and the rest suddenly felt the pressure increase and the tables and chairs around them all shattered. Lu Yin hurriedly answered, Senior Kujian, they're my friends. Kujian's gaze turned cold and he retracted his aura. Mirror God and the rest relaxed, but then they looked at Kujian with fear. A half-ancestor's strength is too terrifying. Senior Mirror God, I'm really sorry. Senior Kujian didn't mean to. He's facing a lot of pressure as well. Kujian continued, I'm from the hyperspace dimension. Lu Yin was stunned. Kujian said, there's no need to hide it. Compared to a mere heaven's path, my hyperspace dimension has helped them more. If they're exposed, they'll all follow me. Mirror God didn't understand. What's the hyperspace dimension? Senior, have you heard of the Six Direction Society? Mirror God asked. Supreme Immortal and Mirror God were shocked, and they retreated a few steps as they stared at Lu Yin warily. The Six Direction Society that the Heaven's Path ordered to capture? Kujian sneered. Lu Yin began to explain the situation with the Six Direction Society to the Mirror God and the others. It wasn't long before Mirror God understood. If anything happens, Senior Kujian has already promised to take you away. What do you think? Lu Yin asked. Mirror God frowned in thought. Kujian didn't rush him and simply waited. After almost an hour, Mirror God said, if we go to the hyperspace dimension, can you give us freedom in the home of the gods? Kujian's expression relaxed. Of course. My hyperspace dimension won't restrict you. If you don't want to stay in the hyperspace dimension, I can apply to give you a parallel dimension. It might be small, but you'll be the masters of that dimension. How many resources do you need? Supreme Immortal asked. Lu Yin looked at Kujian. Kujian was solemn. The more the better. Mirror God's breathing quickened. If we can get enough resources, will there be benefits? I mean, other than taking us to the hyperspace dimension. Kujian's eyes narrowed. What benefits do you want? Mirror God looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin replied, I'm not from transcendent spacetime, so I can't help you fight for anything. This is just a trade, but as a friend, I hope that you can gather as much as you can. Transcendent spacetime is far more powerful than this spacetime continuum, and if the fact that you're gathering resources isn't exposed, then that person might even be able to help you replace the above heaven sect. Kujian glanced at Lu Yin. How ambitious. I'll need to go back and ask for instructions, but the prerequisite is that you'll be able to obtain enough resources. Mirror God said confidently, Senior, you brought a lot of resources in our primordial space. Although they are controlled with our ability, we can still obtain a lot without exposing ourselves. If we don't care about the cost, we can obtain several times more than what you need or even more. Speaking up to this point, he felt strange. Does transdimensional not have these resources? If the home of the gods can get so many resources, then the Sirius sect and the Seven Courts can do the same. These resources don't seem to be particularly hard to get. Kujian left. The mirror deity's words filled him with confidence. It wasn't particularly rare. These 6 words were enough. He needed to consult. He ran. Lu Yin stayed behind. Daolord, these resources? Mirror God asked. Lu Yin asked. I have them, don't worry. Mirror God nodded. Taishan hesitated. Are you really going to transdimensional? Lu Yin teased. What, you don't want to leave this place? Taishan smiled bitterly. Of course not. Lu Yin reassured him. Don't worry, I'll be back. Besides, I won't be leaving so soon. In Lu Yin's plan, the Hexagon Society needed to be nibbled away at step by step. He wouldn't become enemies with the entire Hexagon Society, but he also wouldn't be suppressed by them. The next day, Kujian arrived with He Ran's conditions. If you have enough resources, I can guarantee a spot in the council for the home of the gods, Kujian said. Mirror God and Tai Yishan didn't understand and looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin was delighted. Lady He Ran really said that? Of course, Kujian replied. Lu Yin quickly told them how generous the conditions were. And as long as you're exposed, transdimensional will definitely take you away. Even if Lu Yin tries to stop us, it'll be useless. 2 black energy sources are enough to deter him, Kujian said proudly. Mirror God raised a few more questions and Kujian answered them one by one. It was obvious that He Ran was in a hurry and urgently needed resources. One last thing, Mirror God took a deep breath and said seriously, we'll only trade with Zijing. Kujian raised his brows. Zijing. Mirror God nodded. Kujian glanced at Lu Yin. Sure. Mirror God sighed. That's good. We believe in Senior's guarantee. Since that's the case, our home of the gods will immediately begin gathering resources. Kujian sighed inwardly as well. They had searched through many parallel universes, but aside from the Hexagon Society, none of them had all the resources they needed. At most they only had a portion and it was impossible to gather all the resources they needed. They had finally found the 3 sovereigns universe, but it had disappeared along with Mu Jun's disappearance. This had made He Ran furious and now they had finally found it in the Genesis space. Even if it went against the Hexagon Society's principle of not touching the Genesis space, it didn't matter. Kujian didn't know the ultimate use of these resources, but he was certain that they could allow transdimensional to soar once again. This was evident from He Ran's attitude. For this, even paying a small price wouldn't be a problem. After the deal was done, Kujian was rather curious about the home of the gods' power and asked them to demonstrate it. When Kujian saw that the home of the gods could create all kinds of weapons out of nothing, including houses, mountains and rivers, this kind of shock greatly satisfied Mirror God and the others. Even a half-step ancestor was shocked by their power. Kujian was truly shocked, and he felt as if his worldview had been toppled. Could something really be created out of nothing? None of the Hexagon Society's powers could create something out of nothing. What was going on with the home of the gods? When he met He Ran again, Kujian truthfully reported what he had seen. He Ran was astonished. Creating something out of nothing? Xianxia, do you know how they did it? This is the power of the rune progenitor, so I'm not sure. If you want to know, you can move the home of the gods to transdimensional. He Ran's lips curled up. Interesting. There's such a power. He was sent back to the Hexagon Society by Yuting. Kujian reported Mirror God's condition to He Ran, who smiled and said, this is Xianxi's little trick. He hopes to use the value of the home of the gods to increase Zijing's influence and give her a greater say in hyperspace. Kujian frowned. He frowned. Should I warn him? He Ran's gaze deepened. No need. Let him be. After all, he's your lover. She then grew doubtful. Had she guessed wrong? She had originally guessed that Xianxia and Zijing might not be in that kind of relationship, but now it seemed that if Xianxia was willing to risk his life for Zijing, then they might really be in that kind of relationship. After returning to the Hexagon training hall, Lu Yin remained quiet for a while until Suyu arrived. She was here to cause trouble. Xian, get out here. Suyu shouted. He walked out. What's the matter? Suyu bared her teeth. You took advantage of us capturing Ling Gong to capture Wendy Yushan and despicably obtain a seat in the Grand Empyrean Tea Party. How do you want to settle this debt? He rolled his eyes. I didn't ask you to capture Ling Gong. What does that have to do with me? Suyu was furious. You're too despicable. He glared at her. Me. If you hadn't stopped me in the wood spirit region, I would have obtained that lightning tree's innate gift. Back then I thought that you had interfered because I destroyed your trial, but now that I think about it, did someone order you to deliberately destroy my wood innate gift? So that I wouldn't be able to join the wood dimension. Suyu was furious. You're spouting nonsense. Lu Yin pursed his lips. You should be grateful that I'm not causing trouble for you. Go back and don't bother me. It's not that simple. That seat should be my brother's. Suyu gritted her teeth. Nonsense. Lu Yin ignored her. Suyu clenched her fists. You're asking for a beating. She then took out a stone jian and leapt forward. Everyone says that you're good at practicing battle techniques, but I don't believe it. Let's see how it goes. At that moment, a spear shot over from afar and pierced towards Su Yu. Su Yu turned around and swept out with her jian, knocking the spear aside. Who's there? Lu Yin looked over. Ling Gong walked over from afar, her spear returning to her hand as she coldly stared at Su Yu. Su Yu was shocked. What are you doing here? Ling Gong pointed her spear at Su Yu. I'll deal with you first and then I'll deal with your brother. The spear then turned into a beam of white light that pierced towards Su Yu. Su Yu raised her brows. You're courting death. Bang. There was a loud bang as sparks scattered in all directions. Each spark distorted space and left behind a deep burn mark. Su Yu and Ling Gong were both pushed back at the same time. This attack had been evenly matched. Su Yu came from the Void God spacetime and cultivated Void God's power. Based on the strength of her Void God's power, she was equivalent to the 5th mainland's emissary level. Although Ling Gong had yet to break through to become an emissary, she was already adept at challenging those who were stronger than her. When the 10 arbiters had first appeared, she had clearly only been a hunter, but she had been able to fight against an enlighter. Now she had cultivated to 43 cycles, which was enough for her to challenge an emissary. These were the 10 arbiters, powerhouses who had suppressed an entire era. If not for Lu Yin's sudden rise, the 10 arbiters would forever be legends of the inner verse and outer verse, and they would not be much weaker than the geniuses of the neoverse. This was the hexagon training grounds, so Su Yu could not use her energy source and Ling Gong could not use her fog. She also could not use her microarray weapons and other external items. The two figures fought fiercely, and their speed was so fast that those who had been attracted to the fight could not even see them clearly. Su Yu's expression turned serious as she had not expected this person to be so difficult to deal with. In the Genesis space, she and Su Ji had successfully ambushed Ling Gong because Xiao Qingfeng had been exposed during the trial. They had not wanted to attract the attention of the Lingling clan, so they had taken down Ling Gong with a sneak attack. Now that they were fighting fairly, Su Yu was surprised to find that she was having a hard time defeating Ling Gong. Chapter 2582. Impossible. Su Yu considered herself to be one of the top powerhouses of her generation in the Void God universe. How could she not be able to take down this androgynous fellow? Similarly, Ling Gong was surprised as well. Back in the 5th mainland, she had been notified by Lu Yin and willingly allowed herself to be captured. Even if she had been prepared, Su Ji and Su Yu could still capture her with their combined strength. She just hadn't expected Su Yu to be so powerful alone. The two of them fought for half an hour, but there was still no clear winner. Lu Yin watched on with interest as it seemed like they were about to get serious. Su Yu used her Void God technique and multiple Void Gods flew out of her cosmic ring. The most powerful one had twice the power of her Void God power. This was how the Void God civilization fought. Ling Gong spat out blood from the Void God's attacks, and she had no choice but to use soul splitting. She split herself into 3, each with the same strength as her main body. Su Yu was dumbfounded when she saw soul splitting. How could such a thing happen? The people who had been attracted to the battle were also dumbfounded. Jiang Xiaodao had come as well. He had come to ask Su Yu for guidance on Void God power, and he happened to see this scene. What a battle technique, he shouted, startling everyone around him. Ling Gong's soul-splitting made it so that Su Yu's Void Gods didn't know who to attack. She didn't have that many Void Gods to attack, so Ling Gong took this opportunity to thrust her spear at Su Yu's lower abdomen. At the critical moment, blue flames surged out of Su Yu's head and burned the sky. The heat wave that came towards her made Ling Gong feel a fatal sense of danger, and she quickly retreated. Su Yu glared at her. You should be proud of yourself for forcing me to use my blue phoenix. Ling Gong felt her scalp go numb as a terrifying pressure accompanied by a heat wave assaulted her, making it difficult for her to approach Su Yu. At that moment, the pressure that Su Yu was exerting on her suddenly increased. 3 times? 5 times? Or how much? Lu Yin frowned as this was the Void God civilization's trick. Using a Void God that was several times stronger than their own to pressure Ling Gong, it was like Ling Gong was fighting against Su Yu, who was several times stronger than her. In particular, the blue phoenix's flames were everywhere. No matter how he looked at it, Ling Gong had no chance of winning. Su Yu waved her hand, and the blue phoenix cried out as flames that swept towards Ling Gong. Ling Gong's eyes widened. She was White's white knight. B. The heavenly palace appeared grand and magnificent. The sound of bells echoed, shaking everyone's hearts. Suyu raised her head. What the hell was this? Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. Ling Gong had the innate gift of Heaven Palace, and her 10 innate gifts combined could suppress anything. Few people at the same level could defeat her, and even Suyu, who was several times stronger than her, could still be suppressed by Heaven Palace. The blue phoenix rushed towards the heavenly palace and set it on fire. Ling Gong's face was pale. He would never admit defeat. The heavenly palace suppressed him. Flames shot up from the palace and burned in all directions, turning the sky blue. Suyu's body shook. She actually felt the pressure from the heavenly palace. She looked at the spirit palace and wondered how this woman was so strong. Was this the prodigy of the origin space? The palace was burned and the spirit palace coughed up blood. Its unyielding will made the sound of the bell even more resounding. Every sound of the bell made Suyu's heart tremble. Blood flowed from her ears and she covered her ears. As the sound of the bell reverberated, she finally couldn't take it anymore. She opened her arms and the thunder exploded. It turned into a tree and blasted towards the spirit palace. Ling Gong stared at the descending lightning and raised his spear high to block it. With a boom, the earth shook. The spirit palace was blasted away by the lightning. Lu Yin looked at Suyu. He had never thought that Luo Zong would fail under that lightning tree, but she would succeed. This was her foundation. It was a showdown. In comparison, Ling Gong, who had always stayed in the Fifth Mainland, was at a disadvantage against Suyu. It was rare for such an exciting battle to occur in the Hexagon training grounds. Suyu panted heavily as she looked at the spirit palace with admiration. Above her head, the heavenly palace's light dimmed as the blue phoenix flew out of the palace and entered the nest. Suyu's body swayed and she was shocked. The blue phoenix had used up so much of its void god's power. Across from her, the spirit palace propped himself up with his spear and stared at Suyu. His body was covered in burn marks and he seemed to be heavily injured. "You've lost," Suyu said in a low voice. Her tone was very weak and she no longer had her initial disdain. She respected this person, as his unyielding determination and the magnificence of the heavenly palace had shocked her greatly. Ling Gong slowly pulled out his spear and pointed it at Suyu, approaching her step by step. Suyu frowned. "You've lost. Don't force yourself." The mask on Ling Gong's face fell off, revealing her beautiful face. Her appearance was not as cold as her temperament. Instead, she seemed like a little girl next door. Lu Yin had been greatly surprised at the start of the battle, and now everyone was equally astonished. Jiang Xiaodao's mouth fell open. What the hell? Suyu stared blankly. Although they had captured Ling Gong, he had always been dressed as a white knight, and they had never seen him before. Now that they saw him, they felt the same as Jiang Xiaodao, as if they had seen a ghost. Ling Gong's appearance was just too deceiving. "You've lost," Ling Gong said coldly. Suyu did not react. "What did you say?" At that moment, the spirit palace in front of her dissipated. This was Soul Splitter. Suyu was shocked and she quickly turned around, only to see the cold tip of a spear pressed against her throat. Her life was in her hands. All around, everyone fell silent. Suyu had actually lost to that hostage from the primordial space? Suyu could not believe it. Ling Gong lowered his spear and propped himself up to prevent himself from falling. Suyu was indignant and she glared at Ling Gong. "Despicable." Ling Gong raised a brow. Lu Yin spoke up. "Is that all you know?" Suyu glared at Lu Yin. "Move aside. Don't ask for a beating." Ling Gong was asking for a beating? She looked at Lu Yin as well. "Move aside. This is an order." Suyu was bewildered. Where had this order come from? Lu Yin was speechless. This guy really could not change his catchphrase. Jiang Xiaodao came over and looked at Ling Gong fervently. "Sister, that cloning battle technique of yours is very powerful. Teach me." Ling Gong frowned. "Scram." Suyu glared at Jiang Xiaodao. "Move aside." She then looked at Ling Gong. "I lost because I was careless. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to beat me in your current state." Lu Yin replied, "She hasn't learned anything yet. Let's wait until she learns about the Six Direction Association's civilization." Ling Gong looked at Lu Yin. "Is that the strange technique from before?" Lu Yin smiled. Not only that, but you'll also gain an innate gift of wood and an energy source. Right, there's also the Monarch's aura, which can be used to strengthen weapons. Speaking of which, it's really suitable for you to learn the Monarch's aura. It's useful? Ling Gong's eyes lit up. Su Yu said, don't listen to him. The Monarch's aura is the weakest power of the Six Direction Association's civilization. I don't want you to have an excuse after I beat you. Of course, Ling Gong would listen to Lu Yin. Although his words seemed to be joking, there was actually a hidden meaning behind them. The Monarch's aura was definitely suitable for her. Suji arrived and checked on Su Yu's injuries. When he saw that she was fine, he asked about the results of the battle. We'll set a time for another round, Suji said to Ling Gong. Ling Gong looked at him. I'll compete with you this time. Su Yu rolled her eyes. Stop bragging. My brother can beat 10 of me. Ling Gong's eyes trembled. If that was the case, then she really wasn't his match. After the battle ended, the other areas were also bustling with activity. Someone was looking for trouble with Xianxia after being trapped by his literary prison. Xianxia wanted to find trouble with He Shu, but He Shu's red energy source had a power level of over 1,000,000, so he couldn't retaliate at all. However, he couldn't find He Shu, and He Shu didn't plan on fighting him. Zhou Day Night didn't look for the person who had captured her. Instead, she immediately joined the Lost Dao Academy, as she was very interested in the Lost Dao Academy's power. Wendy Yushan went to the Reincarnation Dao Academy. The Six Direction Association's attitude towards the primordial space had extended to the Six Direction training arenas as well. As a result, those in the Six Direction training arenas weren't very friendly towards Ling Gong and the others. How many people in the Six Direction training arenas could defeat Ling Gong and the others? Almost all of them were in the great training arenas. After a period of commotion, many people were taught a lesson and the dust settled once more. Lu Yin was looking forward to the results of Wendy Yushan and the others' learning of the Six Direction Association's civilization. He believed that he would hear news soon. As for Lu Yin himself, he needed to go into seclusion and study the power of his heart, the Void God's power, the Wood Spacetime's power, and the Reincarnation Spacetime star energy. He felt that although all of the power in his body was concentrated in his heart, it was still somewhat chaotic and he needed to sort it out properly. But how was he supposed to sort it out? He looked at the fates and in his heart the rivers on the continent and the blooming buds and fell into deep thought. Before he knew it, gray had replaced everything. Lu Yin suddenly reacted and looked up, only to see a familiar figure appear in front of him. He stood up excitedly. Master! How many years had it been? He didn't count the 20 years he had spent traveling through space-time. It had been 10 years since he last saw Mr. Mu. 10 years wasn't a long time for cultivators, but Lu Yin had only been in seclusion for a few years at most. To him, 10 years was a very long time. He had thought that he would meet Mr. Mu again one day, but he hadn't expected to meet him here at the Six Direction training arenas. Mr. Mu was still as calm as ever, but this time he looked at Lu Yin with a strange gaze. I didn't expect you to come here. Lu Yin stared blankly at Mr. Mu as this was something that he should have said. Master, why are you here? To see you. Mr. Mu's response was very calm. It was just like when he had met Mr. Mu in the astral tree domain. Mr. Mu's reply had been, I wanted to come so I came. When he had met Mr. Mu in the technocracy, Mr. Mu's reply had left Lu Yin speechless. I was just passing by. That was all. The answer now was, how should I put it, as expected of Mr. Mu. Lu Yin suppressed the excitement in his heart. Master, do you know about the Six Direction Society? Mr. Mu looked at Lu Yin deeply. It's been a while, but your power has changed. This was what Lu Yin was worried about. Master, how has my power changed? I feel like it's becoming more and more complicated. You once said that I only needed to cultivate each power to the peak, and you also said that this was my path. But I'm stupid and I still don't know how to walk down this path. Mr. Mu looked at Lu Yin's heart. Oh, it's very complicated. Lu Yin's heart sank and his face paled. Even Mr. Mu said that it was complicated? He hadn't even said that back in the technocracy. Chapter 2583. Actually, Lu Yin was very confident about the power in his heart, even though it was mixed. This was because it could dissolve the divine martial qi and other powers. It could be considered as the unification of 10,000 Daoists, and it was incomparably powerful. He hoped to hear praise from Mr. Mu and not just the word mixed. He hoped to be able to walk his own path under Mr. Mu's guidance. Mr. Mu looked at Lu Yin. Everything in the universe operates according to a unique order. Matter, power, laws, even opportunities, disasters, and so on. Everything that appears can be traced back to the source, and even the most chaotic of powers can be included in this order. Your power is filled with limitless possibilities, and although it is chaotic, it encompasses everything. Lu Yin was hopeful. Does this mean that I can continue cultivating? Mr. Mu praised. Continue. I'm also curious as to how far you'll go in the future. Your path is different from everyone else's. Different? Lu Yin was puzzled. He recalled Mr. Mu's words and asked, Master, you mentioned that everything in the universe operates according to a unique order. Can I understand this order as a sequence of particles? Mr. Mu was surprised. Sequence of particles? Lu Yin explained what Zijing had explained about sequence of particles to Mr. Mu. After listening to the explanation, Mr. Mu sighed. Human intelligence is truly boundless. To be able to analyze the essence of everything in the universe in such a way. That's right, this sequence of particles is the power of a progenitor. Lu Yin had naturally guessed that once one could influence this sequence of particles, it would be equivalent to influencing the universe. This was the equivalent of changing the heavens and the earth. When you stepped into the world of cultivation, you continuously came into contact with powers that surpassed your own level. You were enlightened by the hunting war, and you were enlightened by fighting envoys. Now you can even fight a half-progenitor as an envoy and challenge a progenitor. Your experience and knowledge have always transcended realms. I thought that even if you could borrow the power of a progenitor or even fight against it, you wouldn't be able to understand it. I never thought that you would be able to comprehend it in such a way. I don't know if this is good or bad for you. Lu Yin asked, if hyperspace really does control the power of sequence of particles, does that mean that they can mass-produce progenitors? Mr. Mu retorted, what does this question mean to you? Lu Yin said bluntly, if it's really possible, then I would like to master this method. Mr. Mu clasped his hands behind his back. I won't interfere with their research. Perhaps it can be done. Sometimes a person's power is unknown to them. Even a progenitor can't see through their own power. A thought suddenly flashed through Lu Yin's mind and he blurted out, could this be the dividing line? Mr. Mu gave a rare laugh. You're becoming more and more intelligent. Lu Yin humbly replied, it's all thanks to Master's teachings. Mr. Mu shook his head. I didn't teach you anything. I only appeared this time because I wanted to fulfill my responsibility as your master. However, the changes in the form of your power have greatly exceeded my expectations. There is no one in this universe who can point you in the right direction. You can only rely on yourself. Lu Yin was put in a difficult position. Self-comprehension? It's too difficult. Mr. Mu replied, you can do it. The root of wisdom tea you used in the past was pretty good, but as time went on, the root of wisdom tea was unable to give you any self-enlightenment. There are some realms that even Huiwen cannot reach or change. This is the Six Paths Association, so perhaps the Grand Empyrean Tea Party is suitable for you. Lu Yin was shocked. Master knows about the Grand Empyrean Tea Party? Why wouldn't you know? Mr. Mu asked. Lu Yin blinked. Master, why did you never mentioned the Six Paths Association? Mr. Mu replied, so what if you did? Unless something unexpected happened, even with your current power level, you would not need to know about the Six Paths Association. The Six Paths Association does not actively affect the primordial space, and the primordial space does not need to pay attention to the Six Paths Association. The Six Paths Association is a combination of two entities working together to fight against the Eternals, but they are also independent entities. Does Master know about the banishment of my Lu family? Lu Yin suddenly asked. Mr. Mu nodded. Yes. Then, Lu Yin wanted to ask why Mr. Mu had not told him, but then he thought about what Mr. Mu had just said. There was no need to even mention the Six Paths Association, so how could Mr. Mu have told him? Mr. Mu raised a hand and placed it on Lu Yin's head. This was a rare act of intimacy. Even though Lu Yin had long since matured and had the power level of a progenitor, he would always be the young man in front of Mr. Mu. Whenever Lu Yin encountered a crisis that he could not resolve, the first person he thought of was Mr. Mu. Although Mr. Mu was not his father, he was more like one. It must be tiring for you to shoulder the burden of the Lu family alone, Mr. Mu lamented. Lu Yin clenched his fists. Not at all. Mr. Mu lowered his hand and waved it gently. causing a colorful path to appear in the distance. Lu Yin saw people walking along the path, laughing, crying, struggling for their lives, or indulging in luxury. Humans are complicated and they have emotions and desires. People can have feelings or hate in their relationships, and there is no need to hide them. If you have feelings, express them, and if you hate them, vent them. That is what it means to be human, a person of flesh and blood. If you want revenge, Master will not stop you, but you must never lose your sense of responsibility. The colorful path continued to extend, and Lu Yin saw a statue of himself on earth. He saw countless people worshipping him, looking at him with reverence. The fanaticism in their eyes almost melted his heart. These people truly revered and worshipped him. This scene was not limited to just Earth. Statues of him appeared on planets all over the fifth mainland, each one like a dot of light that pierced through the entire continent. Child, when you grow up, you must serve the Tao Master and protect this universe. Go cultivate, join the above heaven sect and protect the Tao Master. The reason why our family can continue to cultivate is because of the Tao Master's grace. From now on, the first rule of our family is to always be loyal to the Tao Master and fight for him. Countless voices echoed in Lu Yin's ears, and he heard the fanatical roars and saw the passionate gazes. His heart surged with passion. He knew that he was revered on the fifth mainland, but he had never felt this way before. Countless people looked at him, worshipped him, and swore to protect him. This was a promise that someone cared about him and was willing to use their lives to protect him. No matter how you seek revenge, you must never lose your sense of responsibility as a human. They are your responsibility. Mr. Mu retracted his hand and the colorful path disappeared. A familiar gray appeared in front of Lu Yin's eyes once again. Lu Yin took a deep breath and bowed deeply to Mr. Mu. This disciple understands. I will not disappoint Master. Mr. Mu smiled. I cannot guide you on your future path, but I will do my best to protect you. You can go to the Grand Empyrean Tea Party as you wish, and the Grand Empyrean will not act against you. Lu Yin suddenly looked up, hearing the confidence in Mr. Mu's voice. Mr. Mu's tone was calm, but he had said something that no one in the Six Directions Society or the Primordial Space had dared to say. This disciple understands. Lu Yin was excited. Then, Master, are you not going to Immortal City? The gray suddenly dissipated and Mr. Mu's figure blurred. When you become a progenitor, Master will tell you the truth about this universe. Mr. Mu's figure then completely vanished. Lu Yin shouted, Pastor, wait. This disciple still has questions. However, everything returned to normal. The gray was gone and so was Mr. Mu. Lu Yin was disappointed as he had too many questions to ask. Immortal City, the flames that had burned the Book of Destiny, how Ming Yan had been saved, the burial garden, and the only true God. These were things that only someone at Mr. Mu's level could know, but Mr. Mu had not given him the chance. Was it really as Mr. Mu had said, that he had to become a progenitor to know these things? At this moment, Lu Yin finally understood how fortunate he had been to have Mr. Mu as his master. He now understood how ordinary all those opportunities had been in Mr. Mu's eyes, and he also understood the disparity between him and Mr. Mu. From the very beginning, Lu Yin had stood at an unparalleled height, one that was even higher than the Lu family. Lu Yin let out a long breath. It did not matter anymore, as Mr. Mu's arrival had solved the problem that he had been most concerned about. The Grand Empyreans would not act against him, which allowed Lu Yin to relax. As long as he could ensure that the Grand Empyreans did not act against him, he did not fear anyone else. The 3 sovereigns and 9 sages. Even if the 3 sovereigns and 6 Daos were comparable to the 3 realms and 6 Daos from the era of the above heaven, Lu Yin would not have to face them head-on. The ones he feared the most were still the Grand Empyreans. Since Mr. Mu had only ensured that the Grand Empyreans would not act against him, that meant that Lu Yin still had a chance against the 3 sovereigns and 9 sages. This conjecture made Lu Yin feel much less apprehensive about the reincarnation spacetime. Perhaps it was not impossible for him to go to the reincarnation spacetime. Just as he had resolved his worries about going to the reincarnation spacetime, Shijiao had arrived. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. This time he did not plan on rejecting the Grand Stone Gate's invitation. However, fate seemed to be playing a joke on Lu Yin. Shijiao had not come to invite him, but rather to inform him that someone had already inherited the position of the Great Stone Saint. Someone has become the new Great Stone Saint? Lu Yin exclaimed. Shi Jiao's expression did not look too good, and her eyes were filled with unconcealable grief. The great stone saint died in battle, and the 3 sovereigns and 9 sages could not be left vacant. The Grand Empyrean bestowed the position to someone else. Lu Yin was speechless. He had just been prepared to accept the Grand Stone Gate's invitation, but now, something unexpected had happened. They did not want him anymore. What was this? Shi Jiao was somewhat apologetic. Xianxia, although the position of the Great Stone Saint has already been inherited, if you are willing, you can still join the Grand Stone Gate. I guarantee that I will find you the best master or recommend you to other powerhouses. With your talent, you will definitely succeed in becoming a disciple of the 3 sovereigns and 9 sages. Lu Yin replied, Senior, there is no need to blame yourself. I just want to know how Senior Great Stone Saint died in battle. Senior is a hero of the human race. If I am lucky enough to become a powerhouse in the future, I will definitely find a way to avenge Senior Great Stone Saint. Shi Jiao looked at Lu Yin with a strange light in her eyes. She had thought that Lu Yin would be furious since the promised position of the Great Stone Saint was gone. No one would be able to accept losing a powerhouse's position for nothing. She had not expected him to care about the Great Stone Saint's matter. Not everyone in the Grand Stone Gate was like this. Compared to the others, Xianxi's awareness was much higher. I finally understand why Zhou Xian cares so much about you, Shi Jiao sighed. When you said that you refused the position of the Great Stone Saint to repay Zhou Xian's kindness, I did not believe you and guessed that there might be other reasons. Now I believe you. Xianxia, it is the Grand Stone Gate's loss that we did not let you inherit the position of Great Stone Saint. Chapter 2584. Lu Yin replied, Since this is the Grand Empyrean's arrangement, there must be a reason for it. I just want to know how Senior Stone Saint died in battle. Of course he cared about this. One of the reasons he had joined the Sixth Direction Association was to learn more about the Eternals' strength. It was impossible for the Eternals to only have 7 progenitors in the 7 sky gods. The Sixth Direction Association, along with the other parallel spacetimes in the primordial space, had quite a few progenitors. Even so, they were still suppressed by the Eternals. Shi Jiao's eyes dimmed. Stone Saint died at Qing Kong's hands. Lu Yin was shocked. Qing Kong? That dreamlike bubble? Shi Jiao nodded. Tu Shuang, who captured you, was Qing Kong's disciple. Qing Kong is very mysterious and no one knows his identity, not even his gender. He's best at finding weaknesses. Stone Saint was the closest to death out of the reincarnation spacetime's 9 sages, and Qing Kong targeted him. Unfortunately, Lotus Sovereign was unable to save him in time. Over the years, no less than 3 progenitors have died at Qing Kong's hands. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Killing at least 3 progenitors? What kind of concept was that? Lu Yin had to team up with Mu Xier and Elder Chan just to deal with Mu Jun. Progenitors were very difficult to deal with, especially those who were focused on escaping. They could escape by tearing through the void, but Qing Kong had managed to kill 3 of them. Even the Grand Empyrean can't find Qing Kong? Lu Yin did not understand. Shi Jiao explained, the Grand Empyrean's opponent is the only true god, and the one chasing after Qing Kong is the Sanctification. However, they have not been able to track him down after so many years. Instead, Qing Kong instigated Tu Shuang to defect. This matter has made the Sanctification the laughingstock of the entire reincarnation spacetime. At this point, her eyes suddenly lit up. Xianxia, are you interested in becoming a Sanctification? Lu Yin was surprised. A Sanctification? Shi Jiao whispered. Tu Shuang was instigated by Qing Kong and Xiao Qingfeng and the others were captured. This caused dissatisfaction in various spacetimes, and even Xiao Qingfeng's master, Sovereign Xiaoyin, reported this to the Grand Empyrean. There are rumors that the Sanctification will be stripped of their positions, and once that happens, the position will be taken by someone else. Right now, many people are trying their best to join the ranks of the Divine Transformation Realm. Once the position of the Divine Transformation Realm is taken away, they will most likely inherit it. Lu Yin shook his head. I still want to join the Void God's universe. Without the position of the Great Stone Saint, Shi Jiao couldn't persuade Lu Yin so naturally, but she still said, it's a good thing that you're a loyal person, but in the world of cultivation, it could easily become a fatal flaw. Xianxia, Zhou Xian is very good to you, but there's a limit to what he can give you. Even if he recommends an extremely strong person to you as a teacher, The possibility of you becoming a void god is very low because of Su Wang's attack. Lu Yin wanted to say something but Shi Jiao cut him off. Or to put it another way, you can help Su turn to Yin. Lu Yin was confused. Help Senior Su Xiangyin? Shi Jiao asked, do you know about the endless battlefield? Lu Yin's eyes trembled. I do. Apparently, it's the place where the Six Direction Association and the Eternals fight. Shi Jiao nodded, her eyes filled with melancholy and lingering fear. That's right. The endless battlefield is a place where the Six Direction Association connects many desolate parallel spacetimes to form a barrier outside the Six Direction Association's parallel spacetimes. It's the main battlefield against the Eternals. No matter who it is, they have to enter the endless battlefield at regular intervals, and even extreme powerhouses are no exception. Since ancient times, no less than 20 extreme powerhouses have died in the endless battlefield. The Great Stone Saint died in the endless battlefield, and Su Xiangyin is nearing the age limit to enter the endless battlefield. Once he enters the endless battlefield, his life and death will no longer be in his own hands. If you really want to help him, then become a powerhouse as quickly as possible and enter the endless battlefield to protect his life. Otherwise, with his strength, it will be difficult for him to return alive. Don't think that the higher your cultivation, the better your chances of survival. There are some battles that only people at our level can participate in. Su Xiangyin was lucky enough to return alive last time, but that might not be the case this time. Lu Yin lowered his head. The endless battlefield was also known as the 100 Alliance battlefield. The Six Direction Association had unearthed 62 parallel spacetime civilizations, either allying with them or conquering them and pulling them into the endless battlefield. The endless battlefield was even more intense than the Six Direction Association's parallel spacetime, and there were all sorts of civilizations and wars. Lu Yin had heard about it not long after arriving at the Six Direction training hall from Luo Lao. According to Luo Lao, he would rather die than go to the endless battlefield. If he went, he would not be able to return. In reality, the endless battlefield was equivalent to the battlefield on the other side of the astral tree. The astral tree had the mother tree and unlimited kinetic energy to keep the Eternals outside, while the endless battlefield was the Six Direction Association's mother tree and unlimited kinetic energy. The Six Direction Association had filled the endless battlefield with too many people, and they had allied with various parallel spacetimes to fight to the death against the Eternals. That was how they had been able to keep most of the Eternals' forces outside the Six Direction Association. Otherwise, the Six Direction Association would not be in its current state. Back when the Undying God had been trapped by the ancestral Mang, the Seven Sky Gods had come to his rescue, and the Six Direction Association had reclaimed their lost territory. This had forced the Eternals to retreat from the astral tree. They could not completely lose their territory in the Six Direction Association's parallel spacetime, or else it would be very difficult to fight their way back because of the endless battlefield. If the Eternals had only lost their territory in the Six Direction Association's parallel spacetime without the endless battlefield as a barrier, then the Eternals would not have cared so much. Overall, the Astral Tree's situation was much better than the Six Direction Association's, as the Mother Tree and unlimited kinetic energy were able to completely isolate the Eternals. Very few people from the endless battlefield could return, so the outside world did not know much about it. They only knew that it was a land of death. Our reincarnation spacetime has 3 Nine Sages, and 5 of them are in the endless battlefield, not to mention the other spacetimes. You can imagine how terrifying the endless battlefield is, Shi Jiao said. Lu Yin looked up with a resolute gaze. This junior understands. If possible, this junior will fight for the position of sanctification. Shi Jiao smiled. That's good. She had her own reasons for advising Lu Yin to fight for the position of sanctification. Based on Lu Yin's behavior, Shi Jiao felt that she had treated him quite well. Once he became an extreme powerhouse, she would have another backer. Compared to having an extreme powerhouse as a backer in the future, it was much more worth it to say a few more words and use her brain. By the way, Senior, who will inherit the Great Stone Saint's position? Lu Yin was curious. Although he had no intention of inheriting the position, this person had basically robbed him of his opportunity, which made him quite unhappy. Shi Jiao frowned. I don't know. Lu Yin was shocked. You don't know? Shi Jiao said in a low voice. This person is not from our reincarnation spacetime, but no one in the Great Stone sect knows where he came from or where he came from. Probably only a few people like the Grand Empyrean know. Lu Yin grunted and did not pay too much attention to it. The Stone Gate 8 Hands and the Stone Mace technique will soon be removed from the Reincarnation Dao Academy and replaced by the Heavenly Transformation technique, Shijiao reminded him. You should be able to see how important the reincarnation time and space is to the Sixth Direction Dojo. Whoever abdicates will have their power appear here. This is equivalent to telling everyone that this seat can appear from the Sixth Direction Dojo. This is also why I was certain that you were very likely to inherit the position of the Great Stone Saint. That's why. It's still the same even now. Properly cultivate the heavenly conversion technique and attract the attention of the reincarnation spacetime. The Grand Empyreans might look over here. Her last sentence made Lu Yin's hair stand on end. Being seen by a Grand Empyrean? How could that be? His death mask could fool Bai Sheng, but it definitely could not fool a Grand Empyrean. He did not know how many powerhouses in the Sixth Direction training grounds could see through his death mask, which made him especially wary. Shijiao quickly left. He was right. A few days later, the Reincarnation Dao Academy's entry technique was changed to the Heavenly Conversion technique, and the Stone Gate 8 Hands and the Stone Truncheon technique were removed. This move caused the Sixth Direction training grounds to erupt into an uproar, and countless people looked at the Reincarnation Dao Academy with longing. News that the Holiness Transformation technique could be replaced had long since spread. Now, anyone who could cultivate the Heavenly Conversion technique well would have a chance to become a Holiness Transformation technique in the future. Although the Holiness Transformation technique could be replaced, no one knew how long it would take. Since the Heavenly Conversion technique was placed in the Reincarnation Dao Academy, many people believed that they had enough time to cultivate it. Instantly, everyone rushed to the Reincarnation Dao Academy, including those from the Grand Path training grounds. The Heavenly Conversion technique was a holiness transformation technique that could dissolve all forms of energy, absorb it and transform it into one's own strength. Tu Shuangshuang could rely on the Heavenly Conversion technique to fight against Xiao Qingfeng and the others. She could even suppress Jiang Xiaodao, which showed how powerful this technique was. The appearance of the Heavenly Conversion technique attracted even Zhou Xian. In Zhou Xian's words, the Stone Gate no longer fought over Lu Yin, as Lu Yin was practically someone from the Void God universe. Zhou Xian urged Lu Yin to cultivate well and find an opportunity to bring him to the Void God universe to meet Senior Su Wei. Lu Yin was very curious about Su Wei's strength, mainly because he wanted to find out if Su Wei could see through Death Mask's disguise. Senior Su Wei. Zhou Xian raised his head, his eyes filled with reverence. He's one of the oldest powerhouses in the Void God universe. In terms of age, he should be second only to the Void Master. When he heard this, Lu Yin was certain that he could not meet Su Wei. That would be courting death, as this person was definitely not below by Wang Yuan and the others. It would be difficult for Lu Yin to be confident that Death Mask would not be seen through. The method of not meeting Su Wei was simple. Learn the Heavenly Conversion technique, and the better one learned it, the more competition there would be. If the Stone Gate could compete with Zhou Xian, then so could the Holiness Transformation technique. Lu Yin ended his seclusion with anticipation and walked out. A jade stone fell to the ground, containing a portion of the Heavenly Conversion technique's cultivation method. With Lu Yin's current cultivation, he could easily master the reincarnation spacetime's battle techniques and cultivate them at an astonishing speed. For example, the Stone Gate's 8 hands could frighten even the Stone Saint if he wanted to. That was what he thought when he saw the sudden appearance of the Heavenly Conversion technique. However, when he actually saw the Heavenly Conversion technique's cultivation method, he was stunned. Even if he did not have his current cultivation, he could still cultivate it quickly. Wasn't this the same cultivation method as lock breaking? Lock breaking required one to decompose star energy to retrieve treasures. One's control of star energy had to be ever-changing, and one had to be able to clearly see the star energy of a sealed treasure and use it to resolve it. The Heavenly Conversion technique followed the same principle. It required one to analyze the nature of an opponent's power in the shortest amount of time and then use one's own power to resolve or even absorb it and turn it into one's own power. Thank you. Yunfei 1985 Mu Zhu A Brothers Reward. I'll give it to you, thank you. Chapter 2585. The Cosmic Conversion technique seemed powerful, but as long as one's control reached a certain level, they could easily learn it. This was the essence of the cosmic conversion technique. It seemed simple, but the most difficult part was that one's control over their own power had to reach a level where they could neutralize an enemy's power. This level was equivalent to the Fifth Mainland's Lockbreakers, the Heavenly Intelligence Realm. A Lockbreaker's control over star energy was divided into Minute, Cloudwalker, Heavenly Intelligence, Divine Eye, Profound Creation and World. The Heavenly Intelligence Realm seemed to be the third realm, but how many Lockbreakers in the Fifth Mainland had reached this level? When Lu Yin had first met Ku Wei, he hadn't even reached the Heavenly Intelligence Realm, and Ku Wei had only reached that level at most. The most difficult part of the cosmic conversion technique was that one's control of star energy had to reach the Heavenly Intelligence Realm. The further one progressed, the higher the requirements for star energy control. Lu Yin estimated that Tu Shuangshuang's control of star energy had probably reached the Divine Eye realm or even the Profound Creation realm, which was why she had been able to suppress Jiang Xiaodao and the others. Lu Yin put away the jade and looked into the distance. The people from the Reincarnation Dao Academy must be very happy. The cosmic conversion technique's appearance gave them a chance to try to become a saint as long as they displayed enough talent. Unfortunately, one had to be at the Heavenly Intelligence realm to enter the technique, and many people who joined the Reincarnation Dao Academy couldn't even reach that level. Lu Yin rushed over to the place where he had used the stone door's 8 hands. The stone wall there had been removed, and in its place were spheres of star energy that rotated at high speed and distorted one's vision. This was the entrance exam for the cosmic conversion technique. As long as one could neutralize the star energy spheres, one would be considered a beginner. It was similar to the Fifth Mainland's entrance exam for lockbreakers, but the one before him had been called a starburst sphere. When Lu Yin arrived, many people had already gathered. Shihong, Zuiyu and Jishao were all there. Even Suyu, Mu Mu and the others had come to learn the cosmic conversion technique. Regardless of whether or not they wanted to become a saint, it was always good to learn another technique. Star energy spheres were distributed according to the number of people in the Reincarnation Dao Academy, and the people from the Dao Academy naturally took up many spots. Lu Yin had arrived late and didn't have a single sphere. He looked around and saw that many people had snatched 2 spheres. Suyu had even snatched 3 and she was looking at him provocatively. Someone came late and doesn't have a sphere. What do we do? Do you want to snatch it? Suyu teased. There were quite a few people watching and many of them heaved sighs of relief when they saw that Lu Yin didn't have a star ball. They were truly shocked by his innate gift. He had always been able to gain entry to any academy in the shortest amount of time. They were afraid that he would be able to do the same with the one sky conversion technique. If he displayed a monstrous talent and attracted the attention of the reincarnation spacetime, they would definitely not be able to compete with him. This was for the best. He wouldn't even be able to study. Lu Yin looked at Suyu. Why did you snatch 3? Suyu raised her head. I'm willing. What can you do about it? Even in her dreams she wanted to beat him up. Back in the wood spirit realm, he had cowered and he had been obstructed by that spirit palace. The more she couldn't beat him up, the more annoyed she felt. It was a thorn in her heart. Lu Yin didn't plan on arguing with her, but someone else attacked. It was Wendy Yushan. She had joined the Reincarnation Dao Academy and had just arrived. When she heard Suyu's words, she raised her sword and attacked. Suyu hadn't expected Wendy Yushan to suddenly attack and she quickly retreated. Are you crazy? Wendy Yushan was still wearing her white tight-fitting jacket that was trimmed with gold, and she looked exceptionally heroic. Her long black hair cascaded down her back, and she exuded a tranquil and simple aura. Hand them over. Suyu weighed them. There were 3 star energy balls. These. Wendy Yushan's gaze was calm. Suyu sneered. Who do you think you are? Why should I hand them over just because you want me to? It had been a few days since Wendy Yushan had joined the Reincarnation Dao Academy. At first there had been people who had tried to cause trouble for her, but later on, due to their fear of her strength and her beautiful appearance, not only had no one tried to cause trouble for her, but she even had a group of suitors. Now that she was facing off against Suyu, someone immediately advised her, Wendy, don't stand out. We have star energy balls here if you want them. Don't fight with Suyu. Wendy, Suyu is very strong. Don't fight her head-on. Wendy. Lu Yin was speechless when he heard the shouts of the people around him. This was the preferential treatment that only beauties received, and the Spirit Palace and Jue Day Night probably weren't that bad either. Wendy Yushan stood there with her sword in hand, her valiant and heroic appearance causing many of the men around her to feel tempted. Hand them over immediately. Suyu raised her brows. I left the spirit palace and now you're here. I see that you people from the primordial space don't know your limits, so I'll teach you a lesson. She then took out her stone jian and stepped forward to face Wendy Yushan. The jian swept through the universe, and Wendy Yushan's sword was domineering as 10,000 swords combined into one. Compared to the spirit palace, Wendy Yushan's realm was slightly weaker. She had been far inferior to the spirit palace back in the fifth mainland, and although Lu Yin had provided her with resources that had allowed her to improve quite a bit, she still could not make up for the gap between her and the spirit palace. She was still inferior to the spirit palace, let alone Suyu. However, that was under the premise that Wendy Yushan did not use her innate gift. Her innate gift was related to time and she had never mentioned it to anyone. Once she used it, she might have a chance against Suyu, but it would still be very difficult for her to win. Lu Yin did not want Wendy Yushan to reveal her innate gift, so it was time for him to do so himself. Otherwise, there would always be people who would provoke him for no reason. The Void Moon Stone Jian suppressed Wendy Yushan's swordsmanship, but she remained silent. Even though she was being suppressed, she was still looking for her opponent's weakness. Suyu sneered. Compared to the spirit palace, this woman was much weaker. She didn't even have the chance to use her natal void spirit. Traceless in life. Suyu growled, and the Void Moon Stone Jian swept towards Wendy Yushan from an unbelievable angle. Wendy Yushan's gaze turned cold as she could not block this attack. The only way was to reverse the stone jian and render it ineffective. Suddenly, Suyu felt a different force from the stone jian in her hand. Before she could react, the stone jian was gone. Suyu's body almost fell due to inertia, and the stone jian that should have been in her hand disappeared. Wendy Yushan's sword descended, but when she sensed that the Void Moon Stone Jian had disappeared, her sword suddenly stopped and she turned to look to the side. Suyu also looked in that direction in a daze. She saw that Lu Yin had appeared to the right in front of her at an unknown time. He held a stone jian in his hand and he casually swung it around. It's pretty heavy. Mumu took a step forward and stared at Lu Yin. She had not seen him. She had not even seen how he had gotten there. How had he moved so quickly? Zhishao looked up and stared deeply at Lu Yin. This speed was terrifying. Luo Zong was also present and his eyes narrowed. Even he had not been able to clearly see Lu Yin's speed, so how had this guy moved so quickly? No one had expected Lu Yin to forcefully snatch the stone jian from Suyu's hands. This could no longer be described as inconceivable. It was simply a slap in the face. Suyu stared at Lu Yin, clearly agitated. Impossible. How can you be so fast? Wendy Yushan was not surprised at all. With Lu Yin's strength, he could easily destroy the 6 directional training arenas if he was serious. Lu Yin flung the jian out. The stone jian streaked through the air and stabbed into the ground in front of Suyu. Try again. Try to keep your weapon from me. Suyu's expression changed and she grabbed the stone jian. In that instant, a breeze brushed past her ears, but before she could react, the stone jian in her hand disappeared once again. The crowd was stunned. Once again, if the first time had been an accident, then this time it was absolute strength. Luo Zong clenched his fists. This speed had already surpassed the limits of his current realm. How was this possible? How could Lu Yin be so fast? Even if he had used a red energy source, he might not have been able to move so quickly. The stone jian streaked through the air again and stabbed into the ground in front of Suyu. Again. If you can't keep your weapon this time, then hand over the star energy ball. Suyu suddenly looked up, her expression extremely solemn. She no longer looked at Lu Yin with the same contempt as before. This person's speed was simply terrifying. The stone jian swayed and let out a soft hum. A blue phoenix soared out of Suyu's head, its flames burning the sky and causing the entire Reincarnation Dao Academy to become scorching hot. If you can still snatch my stone jian from me this time, then I, Suyu, admit defeat. Blue flames descended and completely enveloped Suyu and the stone jian. From a distance she looked like a goddess born from fire. Her hair danced in the wind as she stared at Lu Yin with a blue glow. Come on. Lu Yin narrowed his eyes and slowly raised his foot. He landed on the ground and instantly vanished. No one saw him clearly, and when they saw him again there was a stone jian in his hand. Su Yu stared blankly in front of her, her face filled with disbelief. How was this possible? He had actually broken through the Void God's seal. This was not something that could be explained by speed alone. She suddenly turned to look at Lu Yin. You were hiding your strength. Lu Yin tossed the gem over. Don't make wild guesses if you don't understand. Give me the star energy balls. Although Su Yu was unwilling, Lu Yin's display of strength had convinced her. If Lu Yin hadn't tried to snatch the gem and had instead attacked her, she would have only been able to stand there and take a beating. Lu Yin caught the star energy balls that Su Yu tossed over and tossed one to Wendy Yushan. Thanks. Wendy Yushan's tone was cold. I'll snatch it myself. She didn't even look at the star energy ball that Lu Yin had given her. Lu Yin felt awkward. Although she was putting on an act, she was being too heartless. It was as if he was looking at the Wendy Yushan that he had first met. With the star energy balls in hand, everyone began trying to cultivate the one sky conversion technique. The jade clearly recorded how to raise one's control of star energy to the heavenly intelligence realm. Although there was a way to cultivate it, it was still very difficult to succeed. Many people from the reincarnation spacetime also came to the reincarnation Dao Academy, as their control of star energy far surpassed that of others. Zhang Xiaodao came to look for Su Yu. Of the 2 star energy balls that Su Yu had snatched, one had been reserved for him. However, Wendy Yushan had not taken it, so it had been taken away by someone else. What? My star energy ball is gone? Who dares to snatch it? Zhang Xiaodao was furious. Su Yu had no choice but to explain what had happened. Zhang Xiaodao looked as if he had seen a ghost. Xianxia? That guy's that fast? Su Yu's expression turned serious. It's definitely not just speed. Of course it's not speed. Suji arrived and calmly looked at Lu Yin. It's impossible for speed to break through the Void God's seal unless it can't seal him. Bro, what do you mean? Su Yu did not understand. Suji's eyes twinkled as he recalled an ancient legend. If that was true, then Xianxia must have obtained an incredible innate gift of wood. He looked at Lu Yin again and walked over. Chapter 2586. Lu Yin held the star energy ball in his hands, thinking about how long it would take to break it down and gain a basic understanding of the cosmos conversion technique. Suji arrived. I want to feel your speed. Lu Yin looked at him. Revenge. No need. Suji was calm. Lu Yin looked away. No need. Suji frowned. Please let me feel your speed. Lu Yin replied, I don't want to waste time. Then take your revenge. Suji was straightforward. Lu Yin looked at him curiously. You want to feel my speed that badly? Suji's gaze was sharp. Yes. Lu Yin stood up. I can't use it for nothing. What do you want? Suji asked. Lu Yin replied, I heard that you obtained the stone disc? The Heavenly Harvester Plate was the image that the Void God Academy had shown when they had joined the Sixth Direction Training Hall. That image represented the previous owner of the Heavenly Harvester Plate. Unfortunately, that person had died. Suji was the current owner of the Heavenly Harvester Plate. When Lu Yin found out about this, he wanted to find Suji and see how the stone disc was related to the Astral Emperor. Suji wasn't surprised, as many people wanted to see his stone disc. You want to see it? Of course. Sure, as long as you can withstand the Void God's power. You don't have to worry about that. Lu Yin's lips curled up. How do you want to see my speed? Suji raised a hand and released his Void God's power, forming a wall between him and Lu Yin. This Void God's power was comparable to an emissary's. Pass through it. Under normal circumstances, Lu Yin wouldn't be able to pass through it. It was like an enlighter pushing away an emissary. Only an absolute elite could do that. Lu Yin looked at the dense Void God's power. You're giving me a difficult problem. If you can pass through the Blue Phoenix, then you can pass through this as well. Lu Yin smiled and took a step forward, passing by Suji. Suji felt a gentle breeze brush past his face, and Lu Yin was already behind him. He looked back and stared deeply at Lu Yin. You didn't touch the Void God's power. Lu Yin replied, It's fine as long as I can pass through it. Why must I touch it? Suji's eyes flashed. Back in the wood spirit region, you said that you were touched by a fast tree. I want to see what that tree looks like. Lu Yin did not refuse. He had not revealed his speed but rather his use of space. His goal was to attract Mu Shikong's attention. There were too many people fighting for the position of sanctification. No matter how talented he was, he might not be valued, just like how the position of Great Stone Saint fell to someone else. To be on the safe side, it was better to pull Mu Shikong in and let Zhou Xian take him to see Su Wei. If he delayed for a while, he would eventually find a way to leave the Sixth Direction training hall and truly understand the Sixth Direction society. After thinking about it for a while, he decided that the only way to buy enough time for himself was to drag Mu Shikong in and then fight with Zhou Xian. Su Ji frowned. No matter how he looked at it, it was a very ordinary tree. There were no anomalies. How could it be the legendary tree? Is it? It's your turn. I want to see the stone disc, Lu Yin said. A void nest appeared above Su Ji's head, followed by a stone stool that flew towards Lu Yin and stopped in front of him. Lu Yin looked at the stone disc in front of him. It didn't look special at all, but the boundless void god power within made him sigh in amazement. This stone disc was definitely one of the top void gods in the void god spacetime, and it was enough for Su Ji to cultivate to the peak. Why can it change in size? Lu Yin asked. Su Ji answered, it's a power vessel. A power vessel? Lu Yin was shocked. Was it refined by the void god spacetime? Su Ji calmly answered, it came from the primordial space. Lu Yin was even more shocked. This power vessel came from the primordial space? Then why is it in the void god spacetime? Su Ji answered, that's a story from ancient times. You don't need to know. Do you have many of these power vessels? Lu Yin's eyes burned with desire. Su Ji frowned. There were quite a few, but Su Wang was attacked. I don't know how many are left. What a pity, Lu Yin lamented. How do you feel after obtaining the innate gift of wood? Su Ji asked. Lu Yin looked at the stone disc as he answered, I don't feel anything, but my speed has increased a lot. What about the void god spacetime? Su Ji asked. Lu Yin's eyes trembled. He knew that the tree had left traces in the wood spirit realm, but if Third Master Mu couldn't recognize it, then how could Su Ji, someone from the void god spacetime, recognize it? Feel? Nothing, Lu Yin replied. Su Ji left with his suspicions and guesses. Lu Yin couldn't see anything from the stone disc, but it was definitely related to Wu Tian. Zhou Xian had mentioned it before, and Su Ji had also admitted that it came from the primordial space. What was the connection between Wu Tian and the void god spacetime? His innate gift had already been exposed, so all he had to do was wait for the results. Now Lu Yin raised his hand and a star energy ball appeared. It was time to show off. Only when enough people fought over it would he not have to go to the void god spacetime to see Su Wei. 3 days later, the star energy ball in Lu Yin's hand was dissolved. Everyone in the area was stunned. Whether it was Luo Zong, He Shu, Su Yu, Su Ji, or even Xiao Qingfeng who had heard the news, they were all stunned. It had only been 3 days, but Lu Yin had been able to initiate the heavenly transformation technique. This was something that no one could accept. Shi Jiao was the first to appear, and she looked at Lu Yin in amazement. Lu Yin knew that he had overreacted when he saw her gaze, and he quickly said, I've learned this before. Shi Jiao was shocked. You've? Lu Yin replied, Transcendence's essence is to decompose matter. I've studied it with Zijing before, and I've tried to decompose matter using my own spacetime cultivation method. Thus, the heavenly transformation technique isn't difficult for me. Shi Jiao's eyes lit up. You were destined to learn the heavenly transformation technique. Transcendence cultivators specialize in decomposing matter and rely on their cultivation techniques. Since you've studied the heavenly transformation technique and relied on your own cultivation, it means that you've already learned the heavenly transformation technique. Xianxia, perhaps you're destined to be the next sanctification. Shut up, Shi Jiao. Zhou Xian was furious. The great stone sage's position is gone, and you still want to use it to tempt Xianxia? What does it have to do with you? Shi Jiao replied, Don't worry, I'm not trying to tempt Xianxia into joining my reincarnation. Spacetime is just helping him analyze the pros and cons. The sanctification bloodlines matters have nothing to do with you, Zhou Xian said unhappily. He then looked at Lu Yin, not knowing what to say. This kid's innate gift was too abnormal, and the great stone sage wanted him. News of his talent in the heavenly transformation technique would probably spread to the reincarnation spacetime. Zhou Xian, the reason why Xianxia wants to learn the heavenly transformation technique is so that he can become as strong as possible and help you when you go to the endless battlefield. Lu Yin quickly stopped her. Senior. Shi Jiao raised a hand. There's no need to hide it. Su Xiangyin stared blankly at Lu Yin. Xianxia, is that true? Lu Yin sighed. Junior knows that even if I join the Void God spacetime, my chances of becoming an extreme powerhouse are not high. Even if I can become one, it will take me a long time. If I can become a sanctification bloodline this time, I might be able to help Senior when you join the endless battlefield. Su Xiangyin was moved as he had never been so touched by a junior before. From this kid he felt a long-lost familial affection. Lu Yin was helpless. How did things turn out this way? Su Xiangyin took a deep breath. Xianxia, if you're really confident, then go ahead and fight for the position of sanctification bloodline. This might be a good ending for you, but... He glanced at Shijiao. Shijiao frowned and turned to leave. Su Xiangyin leaned closer to Lu Yin and whispered, although this is the fastest path to becoming an extreme powerhouse, it's not real. Lu Yin was puzzled. What do you mean? Su Xiangyin shook his head. I don't know either. This is what I heard from Senior Su Wei. He once said that if I had a choice I would never want the positions of the 9 sages. It's too unreal. After he said that, Senior told me not to spread this information even if I had to die. Lu Yin thought about it. Never want the positions of the 9 sages? Unreal. Indeed, when he had first heard that the positions of the 9 sages could be bestowed upon them, he had felt the same way. If they could be bestowed, then they could be taken away. This was the situation that the sanctification bloodline was facing. Senior, if you tell this junior now, what if Senior Su Wei finds out? Lu Yin was worried. Su Xiangyin said, whether or not you can return alive from the endless battlefield is another matter. There's not much time left, so it doesn't matter. Senior Su Wei will definitely be satisfied with you, and once he accepts you as his disciple, there's no harm in telling you these things. That's impossible, Lu Yin thought to himself. Su Xiangyin patted Lu Yin's shoulder. Xianxia, you're the most talented person I've ever met. Only that perfect young sovereign can compare to you. Fight for it, whether it's my Void God civilization or the reincarnation spacetime, as long as you can obtain it, go for it. Don't worry about me. Lu Yin clenched his fists. This junior understands. Elsewhere, Mu Mu found Third Master Mu and brought up the competition between Lu Yin and Su Yu. A speed that even you couldn't see clearly? Third Master Mu was shocked. Mu Mu told Third Master Mu everything that he had seen and heard. Third Master Mu thought about it and realized that something was wrong. Something was very wrong, and with Xianxi's cultivation, even if he was fast enough, his body wouldn't be able to handle it unless he was hiding his strength. But why would he hide his strength in the 6 direction training grounds? Impossible. He suddenly thought of something. I need to leave for a bit. Help me keep an eye on Xianxi. Try not to let him leave with Su Xiangyin. Mu Mu was troubled. How can I stop Senior Su Xiangyin? Third Master Mu thought about it. I'll find someone else. Don't tell anyone about what happened today. Mu Mu nodded and watched Third Master Mu leave. Chapter 2587. No one knew how long the history of the Wood Universe was. In the war between the Origin Space and the Eternals, many parallel universes had joined the battlefield. The Wood Universe was one of the few that could stand on equal footing with the third continent of the Origin Space. It was a powerful existence that had fought against Zhou Xian. If one were to look back, perhaps the history of the Wood Universe was even longer than that of the Virtual God Universe. In such a long history, no one knew how many strange trees were born. There was a gap in the history of the beginning space, and the same thing happened in the Wood time space. Third Master Mu wanted to go back to look for information, but he seemed to have thought of something. On this day, a majestic voice resounded throughout the 6-directional training grounds. Everyone, gather in the starry sky within 10 breaths of time. Lu Yin immediately walked out and stepped into outer space. Figures appeared beside him one after another. In the starry sky, Yu Ting, Shijiao and the others were all present. After 10 breaths of time, tens of thousands of people had gathered in the 6-direction dojo and entered the starry sky. Lu Yin hadn't expected that there would be so many people. It seemed like another group had joined the 6-direction training rites. When Sansi, Zhou Daoist and the others were also present. Shijiao stepped forward and her half-ancestor power swept across the crowd. The pressure she brought caused the space to distort. Next, no one is to speak. We will bring you to witness history. This process might be very long or it might be very short. No matter how long it takes, no one is allowed to speak. Those who dare to disobey will be killed. Everyone in the 6-direction Dao rites was shocked. They were all elites selected from their respective spacetimes. Although their cultivation levels varied, it was undeniable that they had great potential in the future. Their statuses in their respective spacetimes were not low. Now that their lives were being threatened, many of them were not used to it. However, no one said anything. Shi Jiao used something similar to the power of her inner world and brought the tens of thousands of people from the Six Direction training rites, Yu Ting, Su Xiangyin, Third Master Mu, and the others away. Lu Yin knew that their destination had to be the reincarnation spacetime. Otherwise, Shi Jiao would not be the leader. Are you going to reincarnate in the spacetime? He was a bit nervous. In that spacetime where even the ancestor realm could be bestowed, would a Grand Empyrean notice him? Would he encounter an ancestor realm expert? The accident came too suddenly and he was not prepared for it. In the blink of an eye, as the void opened up, they arrived at an unfamiliar starry sky. To those outside of the reincarnation spacetime, this region of space was unfamiliar, but Lu Yin found it familiar. He saw a continent that covered the entire starry sky and felt the omnipresent astral source power. If it weren't for the fact that this continent was so large, he would have thought that he had returned to the fifth mainland. In the entire fifth mainland, only the Neoverse had land. The rest of the land had already collapsed. In front of them was a huge piece of land that spanned across the entire starry sky. It was unknown how vast it was. It lay across the reincarnation spacetime, shocking everyone who saw it. Lu Yin had seen this scene in the memories of the cultivators from the sixth mainland, and he had also seen this scene when he had traveled through spacetime. The fifth mainland used to have similar continents, but they had all disappeared. Why is there land? A girl cried out in alarm. Her appearance was cute and full of intelligence. She looked towards Xi Bing with a curious gaze. Xi Bing's complexion changed. In the next moment, the woman's body turned to dust and her blood sprinkled through the starry skies. Everyone's expression changed drastically as they watched this scene in horror. That cute girl died directly. It was Shi Jiao's attack. I said that no one is allowed to speak. Those who disobey will be killed. Shi Jiao was colder than ever. Everyone deeply felt the weight of this sentence. He was not joking, it was true. They could kill people. That woman was a member of the Lost Tribesmen, and Xi Bing had taken a liking to her. He had actually killed her without any hesitation. Xi Bing could have stopped it, but he didn't. This wasn't just the will of the Six Direction training ground, but the will of the entire Six Direction sect. Everyone's expressions changed and they shut their mouths tightly. This was the reincarnation spacetime, and it was too similar to the fifth mainland. Or rather, it was too similar to the primordial space. This reincarnation spacetime had to be connected to the primordial space. Amidst the stifling atmosphere, Shi Jiao led the group in a certain direction. Even with her speed as a half-ancestor, it took her several days to cross the land and arrive at the other side. She then led the group to a shocking scene. Everyone stared blankly at the battlefield in the distance. Countless cultivators were fighting against the Eternal's Corpse Kings. A towering wall had been erected on the land, but it couldn't really be considered a wall. It was more like the land had been folded together to keep the Eternals outside. Although it was simple and crude, it was far more shocking than the boundaries of the Three Monarchs spacetime. Stars twinkled both inside and outside the wall, and Lu Yin could clearly see a sourcebox array formed by countless stars that were scattered both inside and outside the wall. The wall seemed to enclose the entire reincarnation spacetime, but it also seemed like it only blocked one direction. A dark red color that could be seen with the naked eye filled the wall. It didn't just contain the blood of humans and corpse kings, but also the blood of various astral beasts. Countless cultivators stood on the wall and fought, and there were also cultivators fighting inside the wall through the cracks. The cracks looked small on the entire wall, but to the cultivators, it was a very large space. Some of the cracks even had stars revolving around them, and those stars were no smaller than Earth. This was the battlefield between the reincarnation spacetime and the Eternals, which was equivalent to the battlefield on the other side of the astral tree plane. This place was filled with barbaric slaughter, and the air was filled with the stench of blood. This was a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. This is the front line between the reincarnation spacetime and the Eternals. Here, aside from the powerhouses, everyone else is just an ant. Even we might die if we aren't careful. This wall is stained with the blood of two powerhouses. Today you might see the blood of a third powerhouse stain this wall. This wall is called the Void Imperfection Realm. Shi Jiao's voice traveled to everyone's ears. Everyone looked into the distance. The void imperfection realm looked like a wall, but it was incomparably huge. It carried the weight of a star, and it was enough for half progenitors to kill as they pleased. It could even allow progenitors to fight. This was the boundary of the reincarnation spacetime. Lu Yin took a deep breath. This place was no less chaotic than the battlefield on the other side of the astral tree plane. From the dark bloodstains on the wall, one could imagine how intense the endless battlefield was. No one knew what they were looking at here. They couldn't participate in the war in the void imperfection realm, and going there would be suicide. However, Shi Jiao's words made many people speculate. What did she mean by, might see the blood of a third powerhouse? Could it be that there would be a powerhouse fighting? Even in the void imperfection realm, it was impossible for powerhouses to fight often. Everyone watched calmly. For 10 days, the war in the void imperfection realm continued numbly. Day after day, there was an eternity of slaughter, and blood continuously poured onto the ground without stopping. On the 11th day, the sky suddenly changed. It felt like the sky was collapsing, and everyone felt a pressure that came from the depths of their souls. Lu Yin's eyes trembled. A progenitor. Shi Jiao and the others looked up. An elder had appeared in the sky at some point, and he looked at the void imperfection realm with a calm expression. With the elder's arrival, the entire void imperfection realm trembled. This was a terrifying pressure that only a progenitor could bring about. Shi Jiao bowed. Greetings, Huaxing. Yu Ting, Su Xiangyin and the others bowed as well. Greetings, Huaxing. Countless people in the void imperfection realm paid their respects. Lu Yin and the others bowed as well. Just like the cultivators fighting in the void imperfection realm, they expressed their respect for this progenitor. However, compared to Lu Yin and the others, Shi Jiao's eyes were filled with grief. Only she knew what she was about to see. This scene was one of the few major events in the reincarnation spacetime that would be recorded in history. Huaxing's grief. Huaxing stared at the void imperfection realm for 2 full days before vanishing. The next moment, countless eternal corpse kings shattered outside the void imperfection realm's walls. Huaxing, you're courting death. A shout came from outside the void imperfection realm. It was a progenitor corpse king, and it charged out with a cold voice as it engaged in an earth-shattering battle with Huaxing. Too few people had witnessed a battle between progenitors. Even the people from the 6 direction training rites could not see what was happening, and their eyes stung. Countless cultivators in the void imperfection realm frantically retreated, and the corpse kings were constantly affected by the shockwaves. The heavens were overturned, and the resulting shockwaves were enough to make a half-ancestor cough up blood. The entire void imperfection realm was cracking apart as 2 figures frantically attacked each other. One was a progenitor corpse king. Huaxing was clearly at a disadvantage. In terms of physical strength, humans were at a great disadvantage against corpse kings. However, Huaxing relied on the heavenly conversion technique to forcefully borrow the corpse king's strength to counterattack, and the corpse king found it difficult to withstand. Shi Jiao and the others watched closely, but they could not see clearly. Lu Yin remained calm as he had already guessed that Huaxing was courting death. He had charged out of the void imperfection realm and slaughtered his way into the everlasting realm. This was a punishment from the reincarnation spacetime, a punishment from a great Empyrean. Huaxing kept coughing up blood, and the progenitor corpse king was not faring any better. How much longer can your source box array last? The progenitor corpse king roared and took out a hammer-like weapon to attack. Each attack caused the void to tremble, and a terrifying, boundless darkness appeared. It was as if space itself was being torn apart. However, these attacks were passively redirected. Huaxing had used his sourcebox array, and although he did not know what it was used for, it prevented the progenitor corpse king's attacks from hitting him. Furthermore, the progenitor corpse king was still enduring Huaxing's attacks. Huaxing was indeed an origin array heavenly master. When Lu Yin had seen the heavenly conversion technique's cultivation method, he had already guessed that if this spacetime had a sourcebox array, then there would definitely be an origin array heavenly master. Huaxing was the most likely, and now that he had confirmed it, he felt that it was a pity. If only he could obtain Huaxing's sourcebox array. Unfortunately, he would not have such a chance. Huaxing was seeking battle. No matter how much he fought with the progenitor corpse king, even if the corpse king left the void imperfection realm, he would still chase after it. Holy grief. I remember now, Huaxing. You have been punished with holy grief. the progenitor corpse king growled. Huaxing did not say a word. He allowed his body to be riddled with wounds and his strength to decline, but he still charged out of the void imperfection realm without fear of death. Come if you have the ability. If you want to die, then I'll fulfill your wish, the progenitor corpse king growled again. Huaxing charged out of the void imperfection realm once more, and a lake appeared around him. Lu Yin could not help but take a step forward. This was Huaxing's ancestral world. Once Huaxing's ancestral world appeared, it meant that Huaxing had used all of his strength. This also meant that the end was not far away. Chapter 2588. Sanctifice Lake spread out of the void imperfection realm, and any corpse king that touched it would immediately dissolve. Countless people felt a chill run down their spines. The progenitor corpse kings continuously retreated, and Sanctify charged into the everlasting territory. The lake spread and they all sought death. A few days later the lake had shrunk by nearly half and its surface was dyed red. Shijiao was sorrowful. The cleansing lake is Senior Sanctify's strongest power. He once said that the cleansing lake is like a person's soul and must be untainted, no matter how powerful it is. Now that the lake has been dyed red with blood, Senior must leave. Yu Teng and the others clenched their fists as they watched the lake shrink. They heard the progenitor corpse king's howls and Sanctify's maniacal laughter, which was filled with pain and despair. The void imperfection realm calmed down, and countless cultivators stood inside and outside the walls, gazing into the distance. Their eyes were filled with respect as they slowly bowed. 2 more days passed and no trace of the everlasting corpse kings could be seen in the void imperfection realm. The cleansing lake had dissolved countless corpse kings, temporarily putting an end to the endless war, but it had also put an end to Sanctify's own life. Become Kong. Sanctify bellowed. Everyone trembled as they stared in shock. In the distance, the lake's water scattered in all directions, carrying with it blood that scattered across the sky and pierced through the walls of the void imperfection realm. They could vaguely see Sanctify's body being torn apart. In front of him, a progenitor corpse king roared as it continuously smashed down with its hammer. Each blow landed on Sanctify's head, shattering it. Sanctify refused to be outdone, and he grabbed the progenitor corpse king's neck with both hands. His progenitor power blossomed with its final brilliance. Become Kong. He roared at the sky as he unleashed all of his power, causing the void to sink into darkness. The terrifying darkness caused Lu Yin's heart to tremble. This was a lightless place that not even a progenitor would want to enter. Sanctify used the last of his strength to bring the progenitor corpse king into the boundless darkness, but unfortunately he had exhausted all of his strength. Half of the corpse king's body shattered and the remaining half fled. Although it did not die, it had temporarily lost its ability to fight. Outside the void imperfection realm, Sanctify's power transformed into beams of light that shot into the reincarnation spacetime, rushing towards that high place where a pair of eyes seemed to be watching them. Shijiao's heart ached and she bowed. Sanctify. Sanctify's hearts. Farewell, sanctification. It was raining in the undefiled realm. Every drop of rain could feel the unwillingness of the holy transformation before his death. That was the final brilliance of his power. He carried extreme unwillingness as he completed the grief of holiness and atoned for his sins under the orders of the Grand Empyrean. He could die, but he didn't want to die. Until the very end he wanted to find Qing Kong and die with him. If it weren't for Qing Kong, Tu Shuangxuang wouldn't have betrayed him and made him suffer. Even if he died for mankind, he did not get the treatment he deserved. In the history of reincarnation spacetime, he was just a pitiful person who completed the holy grief to atone for his sins. No one spoke. Whether it was the cultivators from the Unsullied Realm or Lu Yin's group from the Sixth Direction training rites, all of them felt stifled in their hearts. They wanted to spit it out, but they didn't know how. Just because of Tu Shuangxuang, was it worth sacrificing a divine transformation? Was it worth it? The more it was not worth it, the more it meant that the Grand Empyrean didn't care. He simply didn't care about the life of a saint. Lu Yin looked into the distance. The progenitor realm was clearly the pinnacle of human cultivation. Even if there were differences in strength, they should not have died in such an aggrieved manner. This kind of death was related to the Lu family's ancestor. What was the difference? The Lu family's ancestor had been slandered by the 4 cardinal scales and had been killed by them. Hua Xing had been implicated by Tu Shuangshuang and had died to atone for his sins. They were the most pitiful progenitors Lu Yin had ever seen. This was reincarnation spacetime, and this was the will of a Grand Empyrean. Even a progenitor could not defy it. At this moment, Lu Yin gained a new understanding of reincarnation spacetime. This was a civilization that seemed similar to the Genesis space, but it was completely different. Like star energy, the two civilizations could not fuse. No wonder Zhou Xian had heard from Su Wei that even if it was possible, he would not want to become one of the 9 sages. Their strength was not real. Lu Yin suspected that even if Hua Xing wanted to betray humanity and join the everlasting race, he would not be able to do so. This was because his strength came from a Grand Empyrean. What was the point of having a progenitor's strength like this? After mourning for half an hour, Shijiao looked up and swept her gaze over the people from the 6 direction training rites. Someone will inherit the position of Hua Xing within 100 years. Cultivate diligently and strive to enter the eyes of a Grand Empyrean within 100 years. Do your best to obtain the position of Hua Xing. If this had been in the past, everyone would have been excited, but for some reason the position of the 9 sages did not seem as attractive anymore. Lu Yin did not understand why reincarnation spacetime had brought them to watch this tragedy. Was it to tell them that they could fight for the position of Hua Xing? Or was it to tell them that even if they became the 9 sages, they would still be under the control of a Grand Empyrean? If that was the case, why would they fight for it? Perhaps the Grand Empyrean only wanted to express one thing. Since ancient times they had been the masters of the universe. After returning to the 6 direction training rites, everyone silently dispersed. Shijiao deliberately sought out Lu Yin and had a conversation with him, but this conversation was very dull. In Shijiao's opinion, Hua Xing's death had greatly affected Lu Yin. She could only comfort him and tell him not to think too much about it and to strive for the position of Hua Xing. Lu Yin watched Shijiao leave. The entire reincarnation spacetime was like living under a Grand Empyrean, even if one cultivated to the progenitor realm. Then was that spacetime still a spacetime? It was more like a prison. Half a month later, people began to leave the 6 direction training rites one after another. Xiao Qingfeng, He Shu, Mu Mu, Luozong and the others had all left. They could not learn anything from the 6 direction training rites, and if they wanted to learn more, they would have to enter the 6 direction association's spacetime. Lu Yin was thinking about when to leave the 6 direction training rites. He had set his cultivation too low. When Kujian had brought him to the transcending spacetime, he should have set his cultivation to be close to the level of an emissary. However, at his age, that level of cultivation was still very eye-catching. Xiao Qingfeng and the others were all geniuses of the 6 direction association. He had originally wanted to keep a low profile, but now it was not that simple to leave the 6 direction training rites. Why hadn't the Wood Spacetime Association reacted? They should have noticed something from his battle with Suyu. Even Suji had noticed something, so how could they not? Strange. All Lu Yin could do now was wait. Perhaps he could make a big breakthrough in his cultivation, such as an epiphany? Lu Yin waited calmly, but the Wood Spacetime Continuum did not fight over him. Instead, he smelled a strange fragrance. It was the aroma of food, and it was so fragrant that it made one salivate. Ever since he had embarked on the path of cultivation, Lu Yin had rarely been so greedy for food. He followed the fragrance in a certain direction. Who could it be? Who could have created something that even he could not bear? An irresistible fragrance? Soon he parted the grass and saw a fire burning. Someone was roasting something with their back to him, and the fragrance was coming from the roasted meat. High-end ingredients often only require a simple roast. You can eat the original flavor of the ingredients. Sizzle. Delicious. An ancient voice sounded from behind Lu Yin. Lu Yin turned around and left without hesitation. The moment he saw that person, his brain had subconsciously gone on alert. This wasn't the first time he had felt such a feeling, and each time, it had brought him a life or death crisis. This person was not simple, and Lu Yin had not even thought of using his domain to test him. The moment he turned around, he saw someone's back and the delicious roasted meat. When did this happen? Lu Yin looked back and saw a pile of ash where he had just been. His pupils shrank. This person had changed directions in an instant, and he hadn't even had time to react. Impossible, not even Xia Shinji and the others could have caught him off guard, but this person? Why are you running, kid? The man with his back to Lu Yin stood up, patted his butt and leisurely turned the grill. Feeling guilty? Lu Yin's expression remained the same. Junior Xianxia greets senior. The rotating grill sizzled and the person took out something to sprinkle on the roasted meat. An even more enticing aroma wafted out, and Lu Yin unconsciously swallowed as he looked at the meat. It was too fragrant and it didn't seem like it belonged to the human world. How could something as wild as roasted meat emit such an extraordinary aroma? I'm Su Wei, the person said as he turned the grill. Lu Yin's heart sank and he bowed again. Junior Xianxia greets senior Su Wei. Su Wei's back was still to Lu Yin, and his eyes were fixed on the roasted meat. That brat Xiang said you were very talented and he repeatedly begged me to take a look at you. His efforts were not in vain. You are indeed very talented. Lu Yin didn't interrupt and just listened quietly. You were able to hide your strength in front of him. Aside from extreme powerhouses, no one should be able to see through you. This kind of talent is rare. Su Wei then turned to look at Lu Yin. He was an old man with a weathered face, but his eyes were very clear, so clear that it was as if he could see through Lu Yin. Lu Yin's heart sank again as he really couldn't hide anything from this person. There were strong and weak progenitors and this Su Wei was definitely at the top. He was at least at the level of 9 mountains and 8 seas or even higher. However, he wasn't at Mr. Mu's level. Otherwise, Su Wei would have been able to see the power in Lu Yin's heart, and he definitely wouldn't have acted like this. After all, even Mr. Mu had been surprised by the power in Lu Yin's heart. Unless Su Wei's cultivation far surpassed Mr. Mu's, but that was impossible. Mr. Mu's repeated appearances had refreshed Lu Yin's understanding of him. Lu Yin was now convinced that Mr. Mu was definitely a powerhouse at the level of a Grand Empyrean. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said that Grand Empyreans wouldn't act against him. No matter how strong Su Wei was, he couldn't be stronger than a Grand Empyrean. You hid your cultivation and joined the 6 direction training rites. My first guess was that you were a spy for the Eternals, Su Wei said calmly. He then looked at the roasted meat again. In his eyes, nothing Lu Yin had done was more important than this piece of meat. Lu Yin's heart suddenly jumped. Senior, this junior is definitely not a spy for the Eternals. Su Wei raised a hand to stop Lu Yin from speaking. He leaned closer to the meat and sniffed it. The aroma isn't right. Is it burnt? No, the seasoning isn't right. Let me think. Chapter 2589. Lu Yin watched in a daze as Su Wei studied the seasonings and muttered to himself. He finally understood why Su Wei was called Su Wei. The old man valued food, and the 5 seasonings elevated the taste of the food to its peak, producing an irresistible aroma. Of course, this was also related to the roast meat, which was definitely extraordinary. Right, haha, I've thought it through. Put it like this. Su Wei was overjoyed and carefully flipped the meat, sprinkling seasonings on it with a special vibration. The aroma immediately increased. It's done. He then tore off a piece of meat and ate it with a satisfied expression. Lu Yin watched silently, not making a single sound as if he didn't exist. After a full 4 hours, Su Wei slowly finished the barbecue. He ate very slowly, enjoying the delicious food. After he finished eating, he stretched lazily and looked at Lu Yin again. Kid, you're not bad. You didn't disturb this old man from enjoying the food. Seeing this, I'll let you die a less painful death. Lu Yin was solemn. I'm not a spy. Why do you want to kill me? Su Wei picked his teeth with a broken bone. Since you're sensible, think of a way to prove that you're not a spy. I don't want to hear any unnecessary words. Lu Yin fell into deep thought. Su Wei threw away the broken bone. Time is limited and I don't want to stay here for too long. It's useless if you want to delay until that brat Xiang arrives. He can't change my mind. Lu Yin thought for a moment and took out Mount Supreme from his cosmic ring. Su Wei was shocked. Sky-piercing pillar? Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Su Wei knew about sky-piercing pillar. As expected, the Hexagon Society's civilization had intersected deeply with the primordial space a long time ago. He just didn't know what they had done when the primordial space's 4 continents had shattered. This is a power vessel from Tu Shuangshuang. It can store people in a cosmic ring, Lu Yin said as he dragged Tu Shuangshuang out of Mount Supreme. She can prove that I'm not a spy for the Eternals. Her name is Tu Shuangshuang. Su Wei was shocked once more. That bastard who caused Hua Xing's death? Lu Yin nodded. That's her. During the secret auction, she attacked everyone because of the power vessel that the Eternals had bestowed upon her. According to her, that power vessel came from the primordial space and anyone who saw it would have guessed that she was a spy. That's why she took the risk to capture everyone. I'm the mysterious person who saved everyone and sent them to another parallel space-time. Let me ask you, if I were a spy, why would I do such a thing? Even if I had a reason to do it, I could have just killed those young people in the end. Why would I let them come back? I'm sure the Six-Way Society has already investigated their existence. The Eternals don't have the ability to hide from the Six-Way Society. Su Wuwei nodded. That makes sense, but the Six-Way Society's attitude towards spies is to kill the wrong person rather than let them go. Kid, even if you're not a spy for the Eternals, you must have hidden your cultivation and entered the Six-Way training rites for a reason. The Six-Way training rites is the future of the Six-Way Society, and nothing can happen to them. I'll give you one more chance to prove that you have no ill intentions towards the Six-Way Society. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape the fate of death. Lu Yin felt helpless. Anyone would be unhappy if they were suddenly discovered to have hidden their cultivation. Furthermore, the Six-Way training rites were special, so Su Wuwei giving him a chance to explain meant that he believed that he wasn't a spy for the Eternals. However, the Six-Way Society and the many parallel space-time continuums weren't peaceful to begin with. If it weren't for the Eternals, the Six-Way Society wouldn't have existed. Su Wuwei wanted Lu Yin to reveal his identity. Lu Yin hesitated for a moment before bringing out another person from Mount Supreme, Bai Qian. When Bai Qian appeared, he was at a loss when he saw Su Wuwei. Others might not recognize Bai Qian, but how could the upper echelons of the Six-Way Society not recognize him? Su Wuwei was in existence second only to the Void Master in the Void God Spacetime Continuum, and he recognized Bai Qian at first glance. This was the first time he was surprised in front of Lu Yin. Bai Qian from the Hyperspace Continuum? Bai Qian looked at Lu Yin in confusion. She didn't recognize Su Wuwei. In the end, although her status in the Hyperspace Continuum was high enough for the upper echelons of the Six-Way Society to recognize her, it was because of her competition with He Ran. She herself wasn't that experienced, so she hadn't had the chance to meet Su Wuwei and the other extreme powerhouses from other parallel space-time continuums. Lu Yin sighed. I'm sorry, but I can't hide it anymore. I can only tell you the truth. He then looked at Su Wei. Senior, since you recognize Lord Bai Qian, you must have guessed it. That's right, this junior was sent by Lord Bai Qian to He Ran's side to help Lord Bai Qian defeat He Ran. Bai Qian's eyes flashed and he calmly looked at Su Wei. Who are you? Su Wuwei was stunned as he hadn't expected such a situation. Guessed it? How could he have guessed it? But when he thought about Xianxi's identity, his relationship with Xi Jing, his innate talent, and what Su Xianyin had said as well as He Ran's attitude, it wasn't impossible. Lu Yin took a deep breath and said, This is Lord Bai Qian's ultimate counterattack. Compared to He Ran, Lord Bai Qian has no advantage in the hyperspace continuum. She can only rely on this junior's innate talent to rope in the various parallel space-time continuums and then work together with Xi Jing's breakthrough in cultivation to suppress He Ran. This is the only way to win, but this. Su Wuwei suddenly said, Stop. Lu Yin looked at Su Wuwei in confusion. Su Wuwei rolled his eyes. I'm not interested in such nonsense. Lu Yin said, but this junior wants to explain clearly. It's already clear. Su Wuwei looked at Bai Qian and then back at Lu Yin. You attacked Tu Shuangshuang because of her? Lu Yin smiled bitterly. I can't hide anything from Senior. When Lord Bai Qian came to the secret auction, she was accidentally captured by Tu Shuangshuang. This junior had to take the risk. She's Chun Kong's disciple, and even if this junior's cultivation is far greater than hers, I wasn't confident. Senior Hua Xing died because of Qing Kong. This person's methods are unfathomable. Su Wuwei's expression was complicated. Hua Xing was pitiful. He hadn't even seen the enemy's face before dying because of a traitorous disciple. He stood up and patted his butt. Come over. Lu Yin looked up and saw that Su Xianyin had arrived. Su Xianyin had descended with anticipation and apprehension, but he was clearly stunned when he saw Bai Qian. The first person he thought of was Su Wuwei, who had saved everyone. He bowed to Su Wuwei. Senior. Su Wuwei grunted. The kid you picked is quite talented. Su Xianyin was delighted and waited for Su Wuwei to continue. Su Wuwei wanted to say something, but he glanced at Bai Qian. I won't accept him. Su Xianyin thought that he had misheard and looked at Su Wuwei in surprise. Senior, what did you say? You won't accept him? Su Wuwei was cold. No, and my void god space doesn't need him. Lu Yin frowned, but there was nothing he could do. It was obvious that Su Wuwei's impression of him was extremely poor, but at least he could fool him. Fortunately, he hadn't sent Bai Qian away, or else he wouldn't have been able to explain himself. Su Xianyin didn't understand. Senior, this child Xianxia is not only extraordinarily talented, but he's also very humble. He's also very respectful towards my void god civilization. Is there some misunderstanding? He hurriedly looked at Lu Yin. Hurry up and explain to Senior. What did you do to make him angry? It was obvious that Su Xianyin truly cared about Lu Yin, and he was more anxious than anyone else. Lu Yin felt a little apologetic. There's no need to explain. He didn't do anything wrong, but my void god civilization doesn't need him. Don't look for anyone else either. No one will accept him as a disciple. Su Wuwei then looked at Lu Yin and vanished. Su Xianyin was anxious. Senior, please wait. However, Su Wuwei had already left, so how could he find him? Lu Yin stepped forward. Senior, there's no need to shout. Let's forget about it. Su Xianyin looked at Lu Yin in confusion. What's going on? With your talent and character, you shouldn't be like this. Senior Su Wuwei likes to take care of the younger generation, and even that Xiao Zun from the reincarnation spacetime gave him some pointers. Why is he treating you like this? Xianxia, tell me the truth. He suddenly thought of something and looked at Bai Qian. Is it because of her? Bai Qian was calm. Xianxia, I should go. Lu Yin and Bai Qian looked at each other. Be careful. Bai Qian nodded and tore through the void to leave. She had already left her mark in the spacetime continuum, so she could return if she wanted to. Xianxia, tell me the truth. What's your relationship with Bai Qian? Why doesn't Senior Su Wuwei accept you? Why isn't he even willing to let the void god spacetime accept you? Su Xianyin asked solemnly. Lu Yin was helpless. Senior, I know that you care about me, but this isn't something I can tell anyone. Senior Su Wuwei won't let me talk about it either. Su Xianyin angrily rebuked. Do you know what kind of opportunity you've missed? Do you really not care? Do you know what kind of status Senior Su Wuwei has in the Six Directions Association? Senior Su Wuwei is a powerful existence in the Void God spacetime, second only to the Void Master. In the reincarnation spacetime, he would be one of the three sovereigns. A single word from him can change your fate and the decisions of the Six Directions Association. He's one of the few powerhouses who can meet Grand Empyreans at any time, and he's one of the few who has a fixed seat at the Grand Empyrean Tea Party. Do you know how many people in the Six Directions Association want to become Senior Su Wuwei's disciple? I didn't tell you this back then because I didn't want you to feel too much pressure. Under normal circumstances with your talent, you should have been able to become Senior's disciple. Why didn't you live up to expectations? Lu Yin was amused by Su Xiangyin's angry rebuke. He had never thought that he would be able to trick Su Xianyin into becoming a family member. Su Xianyin had looked at him with affection, and his rebuke had been filled with anger. Lu Yin had never seen anyone look at him like that before. Heizij Leon, Big Sis, and the others were his family, but he had performed too well in front of them, so they had never had the chance to reprimand him. Su Xianyin was the only one who gave Lu Yin a sense of warmth. He smiled. Su Xianyin stared at Lu Yin, speechless. You can still smile? Lu Yin smiled. Thank you, Senior. Su Xianyin pointed at Lu Yin, wanting to rebuke him further, but in the end he sighed. Not only did you miss the opportunity to become Senior Su Wuwei's disciple, but because of a single sentence from Senior, you will never be able to join the Void God civilization. Do you understand this? Thanks Reincarnations Back Caramel Roddy Throne Canon Zhang Daming, thank you for your support. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Chapter 2590. Lu Yin's expression changed slightly when he heard Su Xiangyin's words. He had not expected Su Wuwei to treat him so poorly. Ever since he had stepped onto the path of cultivation, he had teachers and enemies, but there were very few strangers who disliked him so much. Su Xianyin had even blocked his path to joining the Void God civilization. Senior might be tolerant, but it's hard to change his mind once he's made a decision. How about this? I'll go beg Senior again. Even if I can't let you become his disciple, I'll still allow you to join the Void God civilization. Su Xiangyin's expression turned solemn. Xianxia, if news of Senior Su Wei refusing to let you join the Void God civilization spread, do you know what the consequences will be? Luyin thought about it. Not only would he not be able to join the Void God civilization, but the more serious consequences would be that everyone would close their doors to him. The more influence Su Wei had, the more severe the consequences would be. Even if he learned the heavenly conversion technique and was extremely talented in it, it would be useless. Once news of this spread, the reincarnation spacetime would close its doors to him and no one would accept him. Even hyperspace would not welcome him. He-Ran would also consider Su Wei's influence. Of course, because of Zijing, He-Ran would not do anything openly, but her attitude would definitely change. Su Wei's attitude would determine Lu Yin's position in the Six Direction Society, and it would greatly affect his future plans. He could not help but ask, "Senior, why didn't you tell me you invited Senior Su Wei over?" Su Xianyin regretted it. "If I'd known, I wouldn't have invited Senior Su Wei. It would have been the same if I'd invited other powerhouses. What's going on with you?" Lu Yin muttered to himself, "I'm actually in cahoots with Lord Bai Qian." Su Xianyin was puzzled, but he quickly reacted. "No wonder Senior dislikes you so much. Given He-Ran's attitude towards you, you're in cahoots with Bai Qian. You've been a pawn for Bai Qian to deal with He-Ran from the start." Lu Yin smiled. "It's not that bad. It's just a collaboration." Su Xianyin said bitterly, "You should have told me earlier. Senior Su Wei hates this kind of thing the most. Among the 6 sects, our faux god civilization is the most united. This has never happened before and we don't want to get involved in this kind of thing. You yearned for the faux god civilization, so did you think of using them to help Bai Qian?" Lu Yin did not deny it. Su Xianyin had a complicated look in his eyes. "What about your yearning for the virtual god civilization? My relationship with Bai Qian and He-Ran is only in hyperspace. If I join the Void God universe, I will only use my own influence and help Bai Qian in the future. Will not deny it, but I will not implicate the Void God universe." Xiangyin as well. "Can't be." Su Xianyin nodded, as this was not a bad idea. "No matter what, Senior Su Wei's impression of you is too poor, and because of this, I'm not confident that I'll be able to obtain his forgiveness. Since that's the case." He looked at Lu Yin helplessly. "Join the Wood Dimension?" Su Xianyin asked seriously, "Xianxia, are you sure that the talent you obtained in the Wood Spirit region is speed?" Lu Yin replied, "I was sure at first, but I wasn't so sure after that. Later on, I discovered that." Su Xianyin interrupted Lu Yin. "There's no need to tell me what innate gift you obtained. When Senior Su Wei met you, I was also doing it with Musan. We fought and he went straight to hyperspace to ask for you. He didn't even greet me." "Third Master Mu." Lu Yin was confused. Su Xianyin said angrily, "I'm still angry when I think about that bastard's face. He secretly went to hyperspace to find He-Ran and ask for you to join the Wood Dimension. He didn't even plan to greet the Void God universe. If He-Ran didn't want to cause trouble, you would already belong to the Wood Dimension." Su Xianyin was furious, but there was nothing he could do. "We fought, and he only stopped when I told him that Senior Su Wei had come to see you. Since the situation is like this, you should join the Wood Dimension." Lu Yin frowned. "Senior, is there no way for me to join the Void God universe? I just want to join the Void God universe." Before meeting Su Wei, Lu Yin had wanted to cause a fight between several parties so that he wouldn't meet Su Wei. Now that Su Wei had seen through him, it was better to join the Void God universe to avoid unnecessary trouble. Otherwise, he might not be able to explain himself if someone from another universe saw through him. It was obvious that Su Wei was an expert who lived in seclusion and didn't participate in any fights, which was why he disliked Lu Yin. If he was from another universe, he might even go to hyperspace to investigate and find out Lu Yin's identity. The more people who knew about him, the easier it would be for He-Ran to find out. It was true that he wanted to join forces with Bai Qian to deal with He-Ran. Now it seemed that joining the Void God universe was the best option. Su Xianyin comforted him. "With your innate gift, whether you join the Wood Dimension or the Reincarnation Dimension, your future won't be any worse than joining the Void God universe. You don't have to join the Void God universe." Lu Yin persisted. "But I still yearn for the Void God civilization the most. Other civilizations are far inferior to the Void God civilization in my eyes. Even if the position of sanctification was given to me, I wouldn't want it. I just want to join the Void God civilization. Zhou Xian sighed. I really believe that you don't want to use the Void God civilization to help Bai Qian deal with He-Ran. With Mu Sen's attitude towards you, you can use the Wood Dimension to help He-Ran, but it doesn't have to be the Void God universe. Because of Senior Su Wei, you can't use the Void God universe's power. Even so, you still insist on joining the Void God universe. Senior, is there really no other way? Lu Yin asked again. Zhou Xian pondered for a long time. With Senior Su Wei's status in the Void God universe, he can block your path to joining the Void God civilization with a single sentence. However, there is one path that no one can block, not even the Void Master himself. That is. He looked at Lu Yin seriously. Breaking through the Void Gate. Lu Yin was confused. Breaking through the Void Gate? He had never heard of such a thing. Zhou Xian solemnly explained, the Void Gate is a strange place in the Void God universe that has existed since ancient times. The Void Master's history is as old as the Void Masters. Legend has it that the Void Gate is related to Wu Tian, and anyone who breaks through it can join the Void God civilization unconditionally and take any powerhouse as their master. Even the Void Master cannot refuse. Lu Yin was shocked. Why is that? Zhou Xian replied, this is a rule that has existed since ancient times. No one knows why this rule was established and there are no records of it in history. However, throughout the history of the Void God civilization, this rule has always existed. How many people have broken through the Void Gate? Lu Yin asked. Zhou Xian and Lu Yin exchanged glances. Zhou Xian raised a finger. Just one. Lu Yin was stunned. Throughout the countless years of the Void God civilization's history, only one person had broken through? That was inconceivable. The Void God civilization was not weak, and there were definitely many progenitors that had been born since ancient times. Even a progenitor could not break through the Void Gate. Zhou Xian smiled. Not even one. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. How is that possible? Yes, I also think it's impossible, but it's like this. Since ancient times, even though many geniuses have been born like Senior Su Wei, who is an extremely strong expert, they still can't pass the Void Gate. Even if they try now, they still can't pass it. This is the Void Gate, a legendary place in my Void God space, said Zhou Xian. Lu Yin subconsciously asked, it can't be fake, right? Nonsense. Zhou Xian glared at Lu Yin. That was personally acknowledged by the Void Master and it was recorded in history. How can it be fake? At the Grand Celestial Tea Party, the Void Master personally promised that even if someone from the reincarnation spacetime managed to break through the Void Gate, the promise would still be valid. This is not limited to the Void God universe. However, so many years have passed and even the 3 sovereigns and 9 sages have tried, but none of them have succeeded. That's why I didn't think of it at first. Lu Yin felt helpless. If even the 3 sovereigns and 9 sages can't break through, how can I do it with my meager cultivation? The Void Gate doesn't depend on cultivation. This is the Void Master's promise, which is why countless youths try to break through. They all want a chance to become the Void Master's disciple, which is equivalent to reaching the heavens in a single step. Their status will be no lower than that of extreme powerhouses, and no one can resist this temptation. Lu Yin was curious. Senior, have you tried it before? Zhou Xian's expression turned unnatural. I don't need it. Lu Yin pursed his lips. He had definitely tried, but he had failed. I've decided to try the Void Gate. There's no time to lose. Let's go now, Zhou Xian said. He had only given Lu Yin a chance to try, but he had never thought that Lu Yin would succeed. In any case, it was just a test and there was no need to prepare anything. Just as they were about to enter the Void God universe, Third Master Mu appeared. Zhou Xian, what's the result? Lu Yin looked over and saw that Third Master Mu was looking at him with a different gaze. It was even more fervent than the first time they had fought over Lu Yin. Zhou Xian said, Senior Su Wei said that he would take him to the Void God universe for another test. He wanted to try again. Even though he had already decided to let Lu Yin go and let him join the Wood Dimension, he was still somewhat unwilling. Third Master Mu was skeptical. A test? Everyone knows about Xianxi's experience. If Senior Su Wei had accepted him as a disciple, he would already be one. Zhou Xian sneered, not bad, Mu-san. You even dare to guess Senior Su Wei's thoughts now. Third Master Mu sneered, what about Senior Su Wei? He went back, of course. Then let's wait. Since Xianxia isn't Senior Su Wui's disciple, then we still have a chance. Su Xiangyin was stunned. Musen, are you crazy? Xianxia is Senior Su Wui's disciple. Third Master Mu raised his head. Senior Woodcarver wants to see Xianxia. Su Xiangyin's eyes widened. Woodcarver was one of the Wood Dimension's top powerhouses, and his status in the Wood Dimension was equivalent to Su Wui's status in the Void God universe. Senior Woodcarver wants to come? Lu Yin's heart sank. No, Su Wui had already caused him to be like this. What would happen if Woodcarver showed up? Chapter 2591. Third Master Mu solemnly replied, before it was just the two of us competing, but now it's Senior Woodcarving and Senior Su Wui. Su Xiangyin, this is no longer something we can interfere in. Lu Yin hurriedly said, Senior, I only want to join the Void God civilization. Third Master Mu did not get angry at Lu Yin's words, and his gaze was gentle and full of praise. He even seemed apologetic. Xianxia, I must apologize to you. Lu Yin hurriedly replied, I wouldn't dare. Third Master Mu took a deep breath. I was blind to have allowed a bright pearl to be covered in dust. Xianxia, your innate gift of wood is very good. Su Xiangyin blocked Lu Yin's path and wanted to say something, but he could not bring himself to say it. He was unwilling to accept this, but his rationality told him that Lu Yin could not belong to the Void God civilization. Senior Su Wui had already determined that this child's future belonged to the Wood civilization. When he thought of this, Su Xiangyin's originally hostile aura weakened. Third Master Mu was puzzled, but he did not ask any questions. Instead he said to Lu Yin, Xianxia, let's talk alone. Lu Yin replied, there's no need to avoid Senior Su Xiangyin. Third Master Mu was astonished and looked at Su Xiangyin enviously. Su Xiangyin dejectedly walked away and waved a hand without saying anything. Lu Yin watched Su Xiangyin's back. This person was definitely unwilling to accept this. Lu Yin had gone too far in pretending to be a family member. Third Master Mu was puzzled. When did this old man become so easy to talk to? Lu Yin stood there quietly waiting for Third Master Mu to speak. The identity of the tree that had escaped was about to be revealed. Third Master Mu faced Lu Yin and spoke seriously. Xianxia, I won't say any more apologies. I hope that you won't hold back your future because of what happened before. Do you know what tree you obtained the innate gift of wood from? Lu Yin shook his head. I don't know. Third Master Mu frowned as if he was trying to recall something. Lu Yin was filled with anticipation for the tree that had escaped. It had actually given him an innate spatial gift, which was a terrifying power that was on par with time. It could be considered an extreme state of power that even a progenitor would find difficult to grasp. But a tree? No one in the Wood Dimension knows exactly what it is, let alone me. However, the tree is a legend in the Wood Dimension. We thought it was too illusory and no one believed it, but since you can touch space with it, we have no choice but to believe it, Third Master Mu said. Human history is a history of war. Not only is there a war between humans, but there are also wars with other creatures. The Eternals are the enemies of mankind. Since ancient times there have been countless wars, and that big tree has appeared in many magnificent battles, such as the famous 75th Day Battle, the Relocation Battle and the Civilization Restart Battle. The 75th Day Battle was won because of it. It took away a powerful enemy, causing that enemy to leave the battle on the 19th day. The Relocation Battle was lost because of it because it connected several battlefields. No one knows how it did it and space seemed to be meaningless to it. The Civilization Reset campaign was not even started because of it, but its influence has been passed down to this day. If it weren't for it, the Wood Dimension would not be the current Wood Dimension. This tree has affected the history of the Wood Dimension. Not only that, but it has also appeared in external battles. The most famous one is the Battle of Zhou River in the primordial space. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat. The Battle of Zhou River? Wasn't that the Third Mainland's war? The big face tree had told him a lot about Zhou River. During the Battle of Zhou River, the Netherworld ancestor had torn Zhou River apart and killed an old monster from the everlasting race. It seemed to have been a 7 sky gods, and Lu Yin had thought that the current 7 sky gods might have been added later. It was the trees that had connected Zhou River and prevented the Third Mainland from splitting apart. Lu Yin understood that the tree of Zhou River was referring to the Wood Dimension. The Battle of Zhou River was the largest battle that the Wood Dimension had ever supported. More than half of our powerhouses were gathered there, And if that tree had not taken away so many people, the outcome of the battle would not have been like that. Third Master Mu then said seriously, Xianxia, no matter what that tree did, there's no need to doubt its abilities. If you can use your innate gift to its fullest potential, you'll definitely become an extremely strong cultivator. Everything I told you came from Senior Mu carving. He couldn't come here immediately, so he asked me to tell you to join the wood space-time dimension. Lu Yin was curious. The Battle of Zhou River? The primordial space? Third Master Mu replied, that's all off topic. If you're interested, you can ask Senior Woodcarver. He said that he wants to take you in as a disciple. Lu Yin pursed his lips. That would be troublesome and he could not delay any longer. He had to leave as soon as possible. That tree had been described as extraordinary, and Senior Woodcarver definitely cared about it. He had told Third Master Mu these things that only progenitors would know. The more Third Master Mu spoke, the more it meant that the wood dimension cared, which made Lu Yin even more nervous. Can that tree really become a powerhouse with its innate gifts? Lu Yin asked again. Third Master Mu replied, absolutely. Do you know how many people were helpless against that tree? The Battle of Zhou River was lost because that tree took away many powerhouses before the battle, which ultimately led to the collapse of the primordial space's third mainland. Lu Yin raised his brows. That's not right. The big-faced tree had said that the Battle of Zhou River had been won, and that the Netherworld ancestor had killed the 7 sky gods. Gu Yizhi had been overjoyed and he had even drunk and chatted merrily with the Netherworld ancestor. After that, the Netherworld ancestor had created the demonic scripture, which had been told to Lu Yin by the big-faced tree. But why did Third Master Mu say that the Battle of Zhou River had been lost? Hold on, Lu Yin organized his thoughts. Third Master Mu had said that the Battle of Zhou River had led to the collapse of the third mainland, which meant that the Battle of Zhou River that Third Master Mu was talking about was not the one that the big-faced tree had mentioned, but rather a long time after the Battle of Zhou River that the Netherworld ancestor had not created the demonic scripture yet. The Battle of Zhou River that Third Master Mu was talking about should have been the final battle of the third mainland, and the failure of that battle had led to the collapse of the third mainland. That tree had taken away many people? Senior, can a tree really take away powerhouses? Lu Yin asked. Third Master Mu replied, Senior Woodcarving did not mention this, but I've checked the history books. Although there are only a few words, I'm certain that the Netherworld ancestor from the primordial space and Su Wangtian were among the people that were taken away. There must have been others besides them, but no one has been able to find anything. Lu Yin's body trembled as an idea flashed through his mind, but it disappeared in an instant. He had just thought of something but he suddenly forgot about it. What was it? It had to be something important. The Netherworld ancestor Su Wangtian, the tree that escaped, and the Battle of Zhou River. What could it be? What was the connection between them? What was the connection between the Netherworld ancestor and Su Wangtian? Lu Yin's expression changed as he recalled that the undying god had said that the Netherworld ancestor had been tricked by Su Wangtian. Su Wangtian had gone to Immortal City, but the Netherworld ancestor had not been able to go. They had also been taken away by the tree during the Battle of Zhou River. What was the connection between all of these? Lu Yin had a guess that was somewhat absurd but not impossible. Could the tree that had escaped be the way to Immortal City? Just based on the fact that the giant tree had taken away the Netherworld ancestor and Su Wangtian during the Battle of Zhou River, it wasn't enough to link it to Primeval City. However, Lu Yin still thought of Primeval City, and a flash of inspiration came to his mind. The undying god had mentioned that the Netherworld ancestor had been tricked by Su Wangtian, and Su Wangtian had gone to Primeval City while the Netherworld ancestor had become Big Sis. Sometimes people were like this. They could easily come up with ideas that they might not have thought of even after careful consideration. He also believed in his own guess that the tree might have something to do with Immortal City. Xianxia? Third Master Mu called out twice, waking Lu Yin up. Senior, I'm sorry I got distracted. You seem to be very interested in the Battle of Zhou River. Third Master Mu was puzzled. Lu Yin replied, I'm interested in that tree. You don't know, but I was almost taken away by that tree in the wood spirit realm. Third Master Mu was envious. That's something that many people want. That tree took away the strongest of the strongest, and it's already good that you were able to touch it. He paused. You should know how mysterious that tree is. Only by joining my wood space-time will you be able to display your talent. Your future is limitless. How about joining my with spacetime? The Void God spacetime can't compare to my with spacetime. Third Master Mu, you're going too far. Zhou Xian appeared and glared at Third Master Mu. You dare say that my Void God spacetime can't compare to your with spacetime? Third Master Mu matter-of-factly replied, my with spacetime supported the primordial spacetime during the Void God spacetime's war. Bullshit, who can say for sure what happened during that era? Maybe my Void God spacetime took the initiative to attack the Eternals, and maybe your with spacetime was the one holding us back, Zhou Xian said shamelessly. Lu Yin was speechless. This was too shameless. Third Master Mu was disgusted. How can you say something like that? Shameless. Zhou Xian snorted and placed a hand on Lu Yin's shoulder. Let's go. Third Master Mu hurriedly acted. Zhou Xian, wait for Senior Woodcarving to come. Zhou Xian grabbed Lu Yin and retreated. Senior Su Wuwei is still waiting. Stop. Third Master Mu was anxious, but Shi Jiao appeared and blocked the two. This is the Reincarnation Dao Academy. If you want to fight, do it outside. Zhou Xian took advantage of this opportunity to tear the void apart and take Lu Yin to the Void God spacetime. Third Master Mu was annoyed. Bastard. Shi Jiao frowned. She could have stopped them, but she didn't. Xianxi's final destination was up to him. Lu Yin arrived at the Void God spacetime once more. Ah, old Musan, this Shi Jiao came at just the right time. Xianxi, let's go, I'll take you to the Void Gate. Lu Yin nodded. Thank you, Senior. Zhou Xian laughed. What are you thanking me for? That old bastard Musan must be anxious right now. He'll try his best to rush over and then I'll be able to help you get more resources. He then sighed and patted Lu Yin's shoulder. This is all I can help you with. Xianxi, don't be too honest when you go to the Wood spacetime. When you see Musan again, take the initiative to join the Wood spacetime and I'll help you get more resources. Lu Yin was grateful. Got it. Zhou Xian's help was already quite good. Not only did he help him get more benefits, but he also didn't let Third Master Mu and the others complain about him. However, Zhou Xian's words also proved that he never thought that Lu Yin would be able to pass the Void Gate. Was it really impossible? Chapter 2592. 10 days later, Lu Yin was brought to the Void Pass by Zhou Xian. During this time, Zhou Xian introduced the Void Pass to him. In fact, the Void Pass was similar to the tide of Virtual God's power. It was like an ocean in the starry sky, completely formed by Virtual God's power. It produced a pushing force from the center. The requirement to pass the Void Pass was very simple. One just had to reach the center of the Void Pass, but no one had ever done it. Regardless of one's cultivation, as long as one entered the phantasmal space, the greater one's strength, the greater one would be pushed back. No less than 7 experts from the 6 Directions Association have attempted the Void Gate, but all of them failed. Zhou Xian sighed. Lu Yin was puzzled. Why would an extreme powerhouse attempt the Void Trials? Zhou Xian said, well, it's not like I'm going to become the Void Master's disciple. All extremely strong cultivators have their own power systems, and even the extremely strong cultivators in the Void God universe have their own cultivation systems, which are all based on Void God power. The Void God spacetime was divided into realms, from lowest to highest: the Upper Void Realm, Void Luminous Realm, Void Change Realm, Void Grand Realm, and Void Master. The Upper Void Realm corresponded to the Explorer Realm, to the Enlighter Realm. The Void Luminous Realm corresponded to the Emissary Realm. The Void Change Realm corresponded to the Half-Progenitor Realm, and the Void Grand Realm corresponded to the Progenitor Realm. There was only one Void Master, and that was the ruler who had founded the Void God civilization. In the Virtual God civilization, anyone who had not reached the upper virtual level was considered a beginner. The Virtual God power that Lu Yin cultivated was equivalent to the Upper Virtual God realm in the Virtual God civilization. It had all come from the Virtual God tide at the Virtual God Academy. He had absorbed so much Virtual God power in one go, which was why he had been able to guide the village to land. The surging faux God energy formed a sea that stretched across the starry heavens, giving Lu Yin an extremely shocking experience. The 5th continent had the Milky Way and the Cosmic Ocean, but they were not made up of stellar sources. The ocean in front of them was made up of Virtual God power. Lu Yin suddenly asked, Senior, if I cultivate Void God's force here, will it be very effective? Zhou Xian's expression changed. Don't do that. You might be able to absorb some Void God's power, but in the end, all of your power will be sucked away by the tide and you'll become a cripple. Many people in history have tried this, but they all ended up the same way. Lu Yin felt regretful. Unless you have the strength to push away this tide, you can't resist the reverse absorption of the tide. Otherwise it's impossible. This is something that even an extremely strong expert can't do, Zhou Xian reminded him again. They weren't the only ones here. There were quite a few others here as well. Using Zhou Xian's words, there were too many people who tried to break through the void trial every year. They all wanted to reach the heavens in a single step, so they all had a tacit understanding. Go in if you're ready, Zhou Xian reminded. Lu Yin moved his arms and leapt into the tide. The moment he entered the tide, he felt a pushing force constantly pushing him outwards. This feeling was very uncomfortable. It was like an ordinary person being tossed about by the waves, unable to control his body at all. The more he exerted, the greater the pushing force. Moreover, it was an omnidirectional pushing force that almost pushed him out. If he was pushed out now, he would lose a lot of face. He had heard from Zhou Xian that Su Ji and the others had tried to enter the void gate, where the naked eye could not see them. Although they had failed in the end, they had lost honorably. As for passing through the void trial, these people had long given up hope. What they wanted to see was how long they could last in the void trial and how far they could advance. Lu Yin took a deep breath as his body felt the flow of the pushing force. If he wanted to advance within the tide, the only way was to search for the weak points. Within the pushing force, he had to find the weak points of the void spirit's power. He had to use the stronger void spirit's power within the tide to push himself forward. In the end, breaking through the void trial was not a matter of swimming or pushing, but of pushing oneself forward. The pushing force also came from the tide, and it depended on one's control over void spirit's power. Lu Yin easily found the weak point and used the surrounding tide's power to form an arc to push himself forward. Zhou Xian was satisfied when he saw this. Lu Yin had grasped the method so quickly. His talent was indeed outstanding in the void spirit's power. It was a pity that there had been other void spirit cultivators in history who could match his talent, but they had all failed. It was a publicly acknowledged fact that no one had been able to break through the void trial. Lu Yin's figure gradually disappeared. Zhou Xian waited calmly. He knew that Mu San had already arrived, but he did not know where Xianxia had been taken. This period of time was enough for Zhou Xian to be anxious. The more anxious he was, the more worried he would be, and the more benefits he would be able to obtain for Xianxia. Xianxia, this is all I can do for you. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Lu Yin pushed his way forward very quickly. He had cultivated the Ian evolution scripture, and his domain, spiritual force and spirit were all outstanding. Even if he could not compare to a void spirit's progenitor, he would not be too far behind. Not long after, he saw someone in front of him and slowed down. He could not be detected. The person in front of him was a girl wearing a thin veil that faintly revealed her snow-white skin. She was doing her best to push her way forward, and when she saw Lu Yin, her eyes lit up. "Brother, you're so fast. Can you give me a ride?" Lu Yin was not enthusiastic and he squeezed past her. The tide's power affected the surroundings and pushed the girl back quite a bit. She was furious and her face turned red. "Bastard." Soon after, Lu Yin discovered that someone else was squeezing in from the side. It was impossible to move in a straight line within the tide, as no one could control the tide's power. "Brother, you're pretty fast," the newcomer greeted. Lu Yin nodded. "You're pretty fast as well." The newcomer smiled. "Let's compete." Lu Yin laughed and then ran off into the distance. The newcomer was stunned. Where did this guy come from? His speed is comparable to a void realm cultivator's. What a monster. Over the next few days, Lu Yin continued to move forward. His direction was a mess, but his goal was always the center. Of course, it should be the center. Everyone he saw had their backs to him and only one person was heading straight for him. Both of them had been stunned and one of them had definitely walked in the opposite direction. When it came to the void realm, some people were fast while others were slow. Some did not want to waste time, and the further in one went, the greater the void realm's pressure. Some people could not bear it and felt that they could not advance any further, so they simply left and used the void realm's pressure to leave quickly. There were also some who wanted to stay behind for the sake of reputation. Thus time did not mean much here. Lu Yin could be considered to be advancing very quickly. In any case, no one had surpassed him yet, and he had always been the one to do so. Time continued to pass, and after a month, Third Master Mu finally found Zhou Xian. You're bringing him to the Void Realm? Zhou Xian replied, this is Senior Su Wui's test. Let's see how far he can advance. Third Master Mu was skeptical. Old Su, let's cut the crap. The Void Realm's losses are too great, and it's too much of a waste to let Xianxia join your Void Realm. You might not even be able to find a suitable Void Realm cultivator. Follow the 6 Directions Society's principles and let Xianxia join our Void Realm. We'll owe you a favor. Zhou Xian replied, did you forget? Senior Xiu Xi? Third Master Mu was stunned. Xiu Xi was a legendary figure in the virtual god universe. He was born in the virtual god universe, but he didn't use any virtual god in the virtual god universe. His existence gave countless people who were born in the virtual god universe another path, a path that they didn't have to follow. You want Xianxia to follow Senior Xiu Xi's path? Not necessarily. It's up to him. Besides, the Void Realm's losses aren't that great, so there's bound to be some good Void Realm cultivators left behind. Maybe there's one suitable for Xianxia. But Xianxi's innate talent is very important. Did you forget that Xianxia didn't get a Void Realm cultivator when we made a bet? But he got a very good innate talent of wood. We won. Zhou Xian sneered. You were the ones who gave up on Xianxia and now you want him? You're really shameless. Third Master Mu shouted angrily. Xianxia must join the Wood Void Realm. Zhou Xian said leisurely, then you'll have to ask Senior Su Wei. Third Master Mu was furious and wanted to scold him, but Zhou Xian changed the topic. Let's wait for Xianxia to come out. We'll see what he wants. I'll analyze the pros and cons. I won't elevate the Void Realm or belittle the Wood Void Realm. It's up to him to decide. He then stared at Third Master Mu and said, but if Xianxia chooses the Wood Void Realm, you can't mistreat him. I'll treat him like a son. Third Master Mu was shocked. I didn't expect you to see him that way. But I agree. We'll let Xianxia choose. Zhou Xian turned around and looked at the Void Pass. His eyes dimmed. Xianxia would not belong to the Void Realm. At the same time within the Su Pass, Lu Yin sped up. He had seen the 2 figures in front of him half a month ago, but even after half a month he had still been unable to surpass them no matter how hard he tried. Even though he was closing the gap between them, the speed at which he did so was very slow. These 2 were not ordinary and their speed was about the same as his. Up ahead, the 2 figures were constantly advancing in a crooked manner, but their speed was about the same. They were almost side by side. It was a man and a woman. The man looked calm and experienced, but he still had a hint of elegance about him. It was obvious that he had been in his youth. The woman was beautiful, and her phoenix eyes occasionally glanced at the man and snorted. We've competed so many times but we're still evenly matched. Why are you so stubborn? The man asked, his voice calm and bitter. The woman coldly replied, if we don't beat you, how can the Void Yin tribe survive in the Void Realm? The grudges between our elders have been going on for too long. Do we still have to continue in our generation? The man asked. The woman was indifferent. If you're afraid, then bring the Void Yang tribe to apologize and hand over the Yin Yang sword. The man smiled bitterly. The Yin Yang sword really isn't in our hands. How many times do I have to tell you before you believe me? The woman stared at him. You can't trust a man's words. The man sighed. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Speaking of which, the person behind us keeps getting closer. We've already increased our speed to the max, but he's still closing the gap. Do you know who he is? The woman shook her head. No, he's very young and his cultivation is low, but his control over Void God's power surpasses ours. He's definitely a genius. Could it be Suji? No, I've seen Suji before and he's not like that. He's also in the Hexagon training hall. The woman did not reply and continued to push forward. Chapter 2593. Another half a month passed and Lu Yin finally caught up to them. He was now only a dozen meters away from them. The man looked back. Little brother, you're really fast. Lu Yin replied, not bad. Senior, you're quite fast as well. It took me more than a month to catch up. There aren't many people in the Void God spacetime who can catch up to me. What's your name? The man asked. Lu Yin looked at him. Xianxia. The man was puzzled as he had never heard of this name before. He looked at the woman. You've heard of him? She replied coldly. No. You and I have been competing in the Void Pass all these years. How could we not know that such a genius has appeared in the outside world? The man then looked at Lu Yin again. Little brother, who is your master? Lu Yin asked. May I know who you are? We're the ones asking you. The woman looked back at Lu Yin. Lu Yin replied bluntly, I don't dare to say. If you have a grudge with my master, wouldn't I be courting death if I told you? Ah, interesting. The man laughed and looked at Lu Yin with admiration. Since you can speak so bluntly, you must be a straightforward person. All right, I'm Su Heng and the one beside me is Su Leng. Lu Yin blinked. Oh. Su Heng was speechless. That's your reaction? What else do you want? Lu Yin didn't understand. Su Leng's eyes flashed. You're not from the Void God civilization? Lu Yin nodded. I'm from the hyperspace dimension. The hyperspace dimension? The two of them were shocked. Ever since the Void trials were opened to the entire Six Directions Association, many people had come to challenge the trials, but almost no one from Ultra Spacetime had come. Ultra Spacetime only learned cultivation techniques and controlled energy sources, but they weren't good at cultivation, not to mention challenging the Void trials. They couldn't even advance past the Tide trials, and would be pushed out the moment they came down. Thus, almost no one from Ultra Spacetime came here. Lu Yin hadn't expected to meet one today to be so powerful. You're from the hyperspace dimension? Su Heng asked again. Lu Yin answered, you can say that. How do you know that I'm not from the Void God civilization? Su Leng replied, because you're not surprised by our names. Either you've known us for a long time or you're from another civilization. Are the two of you very famous in the Void God civilization? Su Heng and Su Leng exchanged glances. Not really. You're Xianxia, right? You're a space-time traveler, but your cultivation is so low. Have you learned Void God power before? You're from the Six Direction Dojo, Su Ling guessed. Lu Yin nodded. I'm from Hexagon Training Rites. As they spoke, the distance between the three continued to shrink. The main thing was that Lu Yin was getting closer to them while the gap between them hadn't widened at all. How many people are there in the Six Direction Training Grounds? Su Heng was intrigued. Lu Yin replied, probably tens of thousands. So many? Su Heng was shocked. Su Ling replied, I've already said that the convergence of civilizations is inevitable. Some people cling to the rules of their ancestors to the bitter end will be eliminated sooner or later. Su Heng was embarrassed. Leng don't say that. The situation forces me and sometimes I have no choice. Su Leng coldly snorted. If a woman like me can do it, why can't you? Men always say one thing and mean another. Su Heng awkwardly looked at Lu Yin and smiled apologetically. Lu Yin was curious. Seniors, are you two sparring? Su Leng suddenly stared at Lu Yin. Little brother, how about you do me a favor? With your strength, help me advance. As long as you can pull 10 meters away from him, you can choose any Void God from my Void Yin tribe's collection. Su Heng was shocked. Leng, don't mess around. Su Leng sneered. In the Void Yin tribe, no one dares to oppose my words. So, Su Heng, are you afraid? Su Heng frowned. You're underestimating the human heart. With your strength, you might be able to suppress all opposition, but what about the future? If you encounter any mishaps, those who oppose you will appear. Then kill them. Su Leng's tone was decisive. What's there to be afraid of? Su Heng felt a headache coming on. Killing isn't the only way to solve problems. They're also your tribesmen, so why must you kill them? You can tolerate each other and convince others with reason. Only then will you be able to convince your tribesmen. You're too extreme. Think about what happened to your parents. Su Leng barked. How can you convince others with reason on the path of cultivation? Scram. Su Heng sighed. My Void Yang tribe is united, which is why we can suppress your Void Yin tribe. After so many years, do you still not understand this principle? Excessive killing will only worsen the conflict. Who am I doing this for? Su Leng's eyes reddened as he glared at Su Heng. Su Heng was stunned and he looked at Su Leng with a complicated expression, but he did not speak. Lu Yin understood that these two were from different families, and there seemed to have been a story between them. However, they could not be together. Su Leng suppressed his family with thunderous methods, and he could do as he pleased without caring about what others thought of him. On the other hand, Su Heng cared about his family and was tied down by the secular world. This caused Su Leng to resent and hate Lu Yin. Lu Yin had never expected to encounter such a situation while attempting to break through the void gate. How should he put it? It was too common, and this sort of thing happened far too often. Outsiders could not interfere, and these people had to resolve their own conflicts. Lu Yin did not have the time to deal with such matters. If not for the fact that surpassing them was difficult, he would not have interacted with these two at all. No one spoke for an entire day as Lu Yin focused on rushing forward. He was getting closer and closer to them, but it would take him a few more days to completely surpass them. If he widened the gap, it would take even longer. Su Leng turned around. How about it, little brother? My conditions are not low. You come from a hyperspace, so you don't know how powerful the Voidine tribe is in the Void God universe. However, I can guarantee that the weakest Void God you choose will allow you to use it until the Void realm, and the best will allow you to use it until the virtual realm. Su Heng also turned around and looked at Lu Yin. Little brother, don't interfere in this matter. I, Su Heng, will give you a Void God that will allow you to use it until the Void transformation realm. Su Leng glared at Su Heng. If Su Heng had asked Lu Yin to help, then it would have been a competition. However, this bastard had told Lu Yin not to interfere and had even given him a Void God for free. It made it seem like she was causing trouble, and this bastard was standing up for her, which made Su Ling even more unhappy. Su Heng, if you have the ability, then compete. If you don't, then scram. He then looked at Lu Yin. 2 Void Gods. Lu Yin raised a brow. This was not a low price. Su Heng tried to dissuade her. Leng don't cause trouble. You'll cause a rebellion in the family. Su Leng barked. That's none of your business. Isn't the collapse of my Voidine tribe exactly what your Void Yang tribe wants? Su Heng hurriedly said to Lu Yin, little brother, don't listen to her. She's just causing trouble. Su Leng was furious. 3 Void Gods. Su Heng barked. Lu Yin was speechless. Why was this guy's EQ even lower than his own? The more he tried to dissuade Su Leng, the more he wanted to do it. Furthermore, Su Leng kept saying that Lu Yin was causing trouble. What for? Su Leng looked at Lu Yin. You can choose 4 of the Void Gods that my Voidine tribe has collected as long as you help me throw him 10 meters away. Su Heng hurriedly looked at Lu Yin, afraid that he would agree. The Su Gate's tidal force was very strong and he could attack Lu Yin, but the moment he did, the force would instantly push him more than 10 meters away. Thus he could not threaten Lu Yin and could only persuade him with words. Between the two of them, one was constantly raising the price to tempt Lu Yin while the other was constantly trying to dissuade him. Lu Yin's head hurt from the argument, and he himself was constantly getting closer to the two of them. Seniors, please allow this junior to say something, Lu Yin shouted. Su Heng and Su Leng both looked at him. Lu Yin said, Senior Su Leng, this junior can help you. Su Heng's expression changed and he was just about to speak when Lu Yin raised a hand to stop him. He looked at Su Leng seriously. But this junior doesn't want a Void God. Then what do you want? Su Leng was on guard. Although she was impulsive, she was not stupid and would not agree to any condition. Lu Yin seriously said, this junior hopes that the seniors will agree to calm down and not interrupt. Allow Senior Su Heng to speak for 2 hours. Su Leng and Su Heng were stunned. What kind of condition was this? Su Heng was confused. Little brother, this? Lu Yin looked at Su Heng. Senior, think carefully about what you should say during these 2 hours. Senior is smarter than anyone else, so you should understand what's meaningful and what's meaningless. Besides, Lu Yin looked around. This is the Void Pass and there's no one else here besides the 2 of you. Seniors, your cultivations are shocking, so why don't you let go of your worldly affairs and your family's grievances and just be yourselves? Su Heng had a complicated expression as he looked at Su Leng. Su Leng was originally looking at Lu Yin, but when he saw Lu Yin's gaze he subconsciously looked away. Lu Yin looked at Su Leng again. Senior, do you agree? Su Leng's eyes flashed and he snorted. Fine, as long as I win it's fine. At worst I'll just listen to his nonsense for 2 hours. From their conversation, Lu Yin could tell that Su Leng was impatient and decisive. Every time Su Heng spoke he would be interrupted by Su Leng, and he would not be able to say what he wanted to say. There were many things that could not be explained clearly, but this was perfect since Su Heng would have something to say. More importantly, Lu Yin felt a headache coming on. If he helped Su Leng win and allowed Su Leng to be quiet for 2 hours, he would also be quiet for 2 hours and try his best to stay as far away from them as possible. However, 2 hours was too short. Lu Yin pursed his lips. If he had known earlier, he would have said 1 day, but it did not matter. They would not be arguing during this period of time, and 2 hours was the same as 1 day. He would not be able to increase the distance between them by much. Most importantly, he would be able to calm down during this time. Senior, move 30% to the left, Lu Yin told Su Leng. At the same time, he also moved forward. Move 50% to the right. Stop for 3 seconds. Full speed ahead in a straight line. With Lu Yin's help, Su Leng gradually pulled away from Su Heng. Su Heng calmly followed behind. In the blink of an eye, 5 days passed and Su Leng was about to pull away from Su Heng by more than 10 meters. According to Lu Yin's calculations, even with his help, Su Leng would need at least 10 days to pull away from Su Heng. However, he had done it in just 5 days. This was not only due to Lu Yin, but also because Su Heng had slowed down on purpose. He had deliberately allowed Su Leng to pull away by 10 meters, all for the sake of those 2 hours. Lu Yin looked back and met Su Heng's eyes. He smiled knowingly and Su Heng's eyes were filled with gratitude. Chapter 2594. Not long after, they crossed the 10-meter gap and Su Leng was delighted. I won. He thanked Lu Yin. Lu Yin laughed. Seniors, please go to the left and I'll go to the right. I'll give you a quiet place to talk in a day without anyone disturbing you. There's no need, little brother, Su Heng spoke up from behind. You can listen. It's fine. Su Leng stared at Su Heng coldly. I won. Does the bet from before still count? Lu Yin did not know what the bet was, but it had nothing to do with him. Su Heng was also grateful to him, so it had nothing to do with him. Su Heng smiled. Of course it counts. Leng, are you won? Su Leng's lips curled up. You can speak now. I can still listen to 2 hours of nonsense. Su Heng glanced at Lu Yin gratefully. He then cleared his throat. Leng, then I'll speak. Su Leng snorted, but she did not speak or interrupt. First, the Yin Yang sword is indeed not in the hands of my Void Yang clan, Su Heng said. In the past, Su Leng would interrupt him whenever he said this, but now there was a restriction. Su Leng was about to speak, but she held herself back and listened quietly. She definitely did not believe him. I know you don't believe me, so I'll start from the beginning. Back then, Master Su Yi had 2 direct bloodlines. The ancestors of the Void Yang clan and the Void Yin clan were fellow disciples, and the 2 of them. Su Heng began his 2-hour speech, but he did not notice that Lu Yin's expression changed when he heard the words Yin Yang sword. Yin Yang sword? It couldn't be the sword in his hand, right? Couldn't be that coincidental. Lu Yin had originally planned to continue moving forward. Since the 2 had been talking for 2 hours without moving, 2 hours would be enough for him to put some distance between them. However, when he heard the words Yin Yang sword, Lu Yin stopped and listened. As Su Heng spoke, Su Leng's expression gradually changed. Su Heng recounted the entire process of the Yin Yang sword's appearance and its disappearance. He also provided evidence that the sword was definitely not in the hands of the Void Yang clan. You were certain that the Yin Yang sword was in our hands because your mother told you. An hour later, Su Leng's face paled. Why didn't you say this before? Su Heng was bitter. Do I have the right to speak? Su Leng opened his mouth, his eyes dim. I've explained the Yin Yang sword. Now let's talk about something else, Su Heng continued. 2 hours passed very quickly, but he didn't stop. Su Leng didn't interrupt him either. Su Heng spoke for a long time, explaining one matter after another, resolving one misunderstanding after another. After hearing so much, Lu Yin admired Su Leng's mother the most. She had actually thought of all sorts of ways to create so many misunderstandings between Su Leng and Su Heng, making it impossible for the 2 of them to ever be together. Su Leng's mother understood Su Heng's temperament all too well. With so many misunderstandings, Su Leng definitely would not have calmly listened to Su Heng's explanation. If not for Lu Yin, these misunderstandings would have continued for who knew how long until they died. In the history of mankind, many grudges originated from misunderstandings. These 2 words brought no less slaughter and death than wars. Some wars even originated from these 2 words. Lu Yin continued forward as he had no interest in listening to Su Heng's confession. He already knew that the sword in his cosmic ring was the Yin Yang sword that they had been painstakingly searching for. It had come from Master Su Yi, and the ancestors of the Void Yang tribe and Void Yin tribe had been Master Su Yi's disciple. This made Lu Yin feel a little guilty, even though he had not taken the yin yang sword from either of these two tribes. Although he had left, it was indeed with him. After an unknown amount of time, Su Heng's voice rang out. "Little brother, please wait." Lu Yin was startled and he slowly turned around. Su Heng had already stopped speaking and he looked at Lu Yin with a grateful gaze. Su Leng's entire person had changed, and he had become much gentler, as if his edges had been ground away. At this moment Lu Yin was still quite a distance away from them, but for people at their cultivation levels, this distance was not considered too far. They had already been talking for a few days. Su Heng bowed to Lu Yin from afar. Lu Yin hurriedly stopped him. "Senior, there's no need for that." Su Heng was solemn. "Of course. Little brother's kindness to me cannot be described in a few words, and it's not just for me." He then looked at Su Leng. Su Leng bowed to Lu Yin from afar as well. "Me too. It's for our two tribes," Su Heng replied. He then looked at Lu Yin. "Little brother's help can be considered to have saved both of our tribes to a certain extent, and we sincerely thank you again. If you need any help in the future, you must find the Void Yang tribe and the Void Yin tribe. Our tribes will do our best to help." Lu Yin smiled. "Seniors, there's no need to be too concerned." Su Leng smiled for the first time. "Brother Xianxia, if you don't mind, you can be my little brother and I, Su Heng, will be your big brother. Remember to look for us if you need anything. No matter what it is, we are not ungrateful people." Lu Yin could feel their sincerity, but it also made him feel even more uneasy. The path of cultivation was filled with intrigue and killing. He had also experienced the struggle for power in the Fifth Mainland, and such pure emotions were too rare. Ming Yan, Haizij Lian, Big Sis, Wendy Yushan, Hui Kong, the mentors of the Astral Combat Academy, Elder Chan, Senior Brother Qing Ping, and Senior Brother Wuxia were all from the Yin and Void factions of the Six Direction Society. Now there were these two more people. Although they had not known each other for long and had only met once, Lu Yin could feel their heartfelt gratitude and commitment. He wanted to take out the yin yang sword and give it to them, but he could not do so. If he did, it would only make them suspicious of his intentions and cause unnecessary misunderstandings. "Little brother understands. Big brother Su Heng, big sis Su Leng, if it's possible I'll help you find the yin yang sword and give it to you. Although my cultivation is low, I know many people," Lu Yin said loudly. Su Heng laughed. "Thank you, brother Xianxia. I wish you all the best as you pass the void gate." Su Leng rolled her eyes. "Don't say such empty words. It's impossible to pass the void gate." She then looked at Lu Yin and smiled. "Don't be so stubborn. No one has been able to pass the void gate for so many years, so I won't pretend to give you my blessings." Su Heng smiled bitterly. "If possible, I hope to invite you to my Void Yin tribe as a guest." Su Heng's eyes lit up. "I'll definitely invite you to my tribe as a guest." Lu Yin smiled. "All right, I'll definitely go when I have time. Have a safe journey, brother. Although it's impossible, I still hope that you can pass the void gate and achieve this miracle that no one has ever been able to achieve," Su Heng shouted. With his blessings, Lu Yin continued forward, feeling very comfortable inside. Meeting these two wasn't bad either. As he watched Lu Yin leave, Su Heng sighed. "The younger generation is catching up. We need to work hard as well." Su Leng rolled her eyes. "What's the point of working hard? We learned Master Su Yi's ultimate technique and we've already reached the peak. If we can't find the yin yang sword, we'll never be able to break through to the virtual realm." Su Heng felt a headache coming on. "That's right. Now that our misunderstanding has been resolved, let's work together and mobilize both tribes to find the yin yang sword. Once we find it, we might be able to both break through to the virtual realm and shock the void god spacetime." "Who's with you?" "Shameless." Su Leng blushed. Su Heng laughed. "Void Yin and Void Yang, it's time for us to work together and shock the void god spacetime. They might have forgotten the fear of being dominated by Master Su Yi." Su Heng and Su Leng stopped advancing, and Lu Yin continued forward alone, heading towards the center of the void gate. Actually, this place wasn't very far from the center of the void gate, and not just anyone could reach this place. A few days later, Lu Yin saw someone lying face up on the waves with his head resting on his arms. There was a drink on his body, and he was leisurely humming an unknown tune as he floated away from the waves. He seemed to be very relaxed. It was a man who looked very ordinary. He had dark skin and wore something that looked like sunglasses. When the man brushed past Lu Yin, he pulled out a drink and offered it to Lu Yin. Want one? No thank you, Lu Yin replied. He remained silent as he continued forward. His heart was in turmoil. A progenitor. It was actually a progenitor. What the hell? He had actually encountered another progenitor in the Void Pass. Had this person seen through his concealment? Deathface's concealment ability was very strong, and Bai Xing hadn't been able to tell back then. However, Su Wei had. Lu Yin wasn't sure about this person's abilities, but he didn't plan on saying anything. As he watched Lu Yin continue forward, the man took a sip of his drink and adjusted his sunglasses. Interesting. He then continued to lie down on the tidal wave and floated outwards in a rather contented manner. A few days later, Lu Yin finally relaxed. It wasn't easy to encounter a progenitor, but he had. He didn't know if he was lucky or unlucky. He looked up and saw a vortex at the center of the void gate. Zhou Xian had said that every generation there would be people who would rush into the vortex, but they would quickly be thrown out. No one could truly enter, and only by entering and receiving the light from the sky would one be considered to have passed the void gate. However, according to Zhou Xian's words, he wouldn't be able to see the light from the sky in this lifetime. Lu Yin was the only one around the vortex, and he could see through the void god's power. He continued to push forward until he finally reached the vortex's entrance and squeezed in. After struggling with the tidal waves for so long, he had thought that he would face an even greater force after entering the vortex, but he had never expected that he would crash right into it. There was no tidal force at all, and his surroundings were pitch black. Lu Yin subconsciously released his domain to sense his surroundings, but in the next moment, a familiar energy surged in from all directions. It was Astral Source. Lu Yin's expression changed. Astral Source? Why was there Astral Source energy here? This Astral Source energy had appeared suddenly, and it was vast and majestic. It was full of pressure, but it suddenly disappeared as soon as it arrived. The Astral Source vortex within Lu Yin's body continued to rotate, absorbing the surrounding Astral Source energy. This was either Astral Source energy from the reincarnation spacetime or from the fifth mainland. Or rather, it was from the primordial space. A name suddenly appeared in Lu Yin's mind: Wu Tian. Could this energy have come from Wu Tian? Suddenly, Lu Yin's body began to plummet and he couldn't control himself. The surrounding Astral Source energy exerted a pressure that was at the level of a progenitor. Unless he released the Divine Seal catalog and borrowed the power of a progenitor to resist, he definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it.